by the Public Meetings Act. You got us recorded, Elizabeth?
Yep, Justin's got it recorded.
All right, thank you. And I should inquire, are there any members that have been reappointed or new members who need to be sworn in?
I think I was reappointed. I've gotten no official notice thereof.
Well, Roger, I think you're still with us. I'll follow up with the clerk and we'll send you an oath of office to sign. So the first order of business then in the reorganization meeting would be to ask for a nomination for someone to serve as chair for 2022. Is there a nomination for someone?
You're muted.
You're muted, David.
I nominate Julie.
I second.
Thank you, David. Okay, are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of re-electing Julie as chair this year, please simply say aye.
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 Congratulations, Madam Chair. The meeting's
Thank
yours.
you. All right, I'd like to nominate the vice chair. I'd like to nominate David Shore as vice chair.
Second.
That, great, perfect.
Ed, I have just a quick question as I'm new to the liaisonship here. Is the liaison a voting member or no?
Welcome, Leighton. Welcome to the board. Now, the answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
And
But
all
we
in
are-
favor of David, say aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations, David.
Thank you, David
Thank you, David
You're
and Doggy.
and Doggy. All right, so we have the appointment of the recording secretary, and then we have the subcommittees. I was maybe thinking we could do the subcommittees later. Just because we might have a new member soon. And then Brenna isn't on anymore, so we have to work all that out.
So, Madam Chair, we actually deferred it last year too, and we never circled back to it. So.
So could we do that in February though? Seriously, I was just
Sure.
thinking,
Okay. let's
yeah.
do February. And it
Okay.
also, if we could also do the appointing of the recording secretary.
yes.
Thank you.
So let's see. So is there a motion to approve Justin let's go as the recording secretary?
So moved.
Okay, and second,
Second.
second, Elric, all in favor? Aye.
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 Oh, opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Justin, so much. You're awesome. That's wonderful.
Part of this title.
And we
Awesome.
really didn't get to do announcements, and I wanted to announce Leighton Newland, who is our new liaison from council. And we're so excited, Leighton, that you've joined us. We're thrilled, absolutely thrilled that you've decided to join us.
Well, I am thrilled and happy and excited to be here. And please let me know whatever it is that you need in any way that I can help you navigate those things that you need from mayor and council. I'm more than happy to be here to take on that chore.
Oh, we appreciate it so much, so much.
The Gulick
So-
Farm.
And I love historic stuff as well. So
Yeah, he does.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's terrific. It's so great. So
And
we're,
so just
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
Frida to know, since she wasn't in the HPC when we did the Witherspoon Jackson Historic District nomination. So Leighton lives in that neighborhood, in that district. He
Mhm.
was very involved with the nomination. He also had participated in other projects within there, the Mary Moss Playground, the mural, the Paul Robeson, and I'm trying to think if there's one other one.
He's a
But,
member of the Witherspoon Jackson Historical and Cultural Society,
Right.
It's great.
and he's
So-
my brother.
Good to meet you.
That's great.
And we're excited you're on council too. So that's a really, really great achievement as well.
Thank you very much, very much.
So we do have minutes from December. They look great to me. Does anyone want to move to approve?
So moved.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Is there a second? Oh, I think Frida did. I think Frida got it first.
I
so-
did, but I was muted. I second.
Okay, so moved by Roger, seconded by Frida. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Justin. You really are awesome with those minutes. We're all the way up to date on our minutes. It's extraordinary. I don't know any other commissions or boards that are like that. So thank you. Now we have the resolutions from last month, applications. So the resolution for 182, 184 John Street. I guess we'll have to do them separately. So,
Julie, are you going to come
yeah.
back to committee assignments or?
well, we're gonna do that, I think, in February,
Okay.
because we might have new members. We have a potential new member. His name is Steve Firestone, and he might be on, I'm not sure. I gave him a link. Anyway. But we can, if he's on later, we can introduce him.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wasn't aware of it.
Okay. And then, as far as the resolution for 182, 184 John Street, were there any changes to that resolution? And if none, would someone like to move to approve it? Okay, thanks, Alric. So, and second, Roger seconded. So it's been moved by Alric, seconded by Roger. All in favor of approval of 182, 184 John Street? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So the second resolution is for the extension of 333 Nassau Street. As you recall, that application had been approved like 3 years ago, and they hadn't been able to start. And so we were able, to extend that. So that's that resolution. Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
I see it's in the Jugtown Historic District, but I don't remember which house it is.
It's
South side.
yeah, and
It's where?
It's on the south side of Nassau Street, down to maybe 3 or 4 houses from the corner of Harrison.
yeah, it's towards Harrison Street on Nassau Street.
It's come before us twice before. This is the first time she hasn't been heavy with child. in her
It's
application.
before you get to Harrison Street?
Yes.
Yeah,
going
if
from
you're
south-
coming from town, it's before you get to Harrison Street.
I think it's like the third house from the corner, Shirley, close to.
Okay, I
the-
know, okay, I got it, I know where it is.
Anyway, she said if they have to come back again, she's gonna be in trouble.
Quick
Um,
question. Is it on the south side? I heard you say south side. Isn't it on the north side?
South side.
South
I
side.
think it's, it's on the south side. Yeah, it's,
The odd numbers on Nassau Street are to the south.
Across from Graves.
right, across the street.
Oh, okay, okay. I
From
thought,
the
I thought you might be
Gravesville,
talking about the one that was next to Graves on the Barsky side.
Oh,
But
yeah,
okay.
no, that's, Peter King, right?
Bill
Yeah,
King.
okay.
Bill King, that's right.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anyway, we still have to approve the resolution. Is there a
That was a
motion to
long time
approve?
ago.
So moved.
Okay, thanks, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, thanks, Shirley. All in favor? Aye.
I,
Okay, opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
we actually didn't do roll call yet.
Oh, gosh. Sorry.
New to the job.
Would you like for me to do that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Endersby,
Here,
Ms. Howard,
Here.
Mr. Shore,
Here.
Ms. Satterfield,
Here.
Mr. Shatskin,
here,
Ms. Capizoli,
Here,
and Mr. Pyle, I understand, is out.
right. Oh, Steve. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce everyone to Steve Firestone. Steve was on, but now he's going to be on HBC, and I just wondered if you had a couple minutes to just talk about your background.
Sure, happy to. And thanks for having me here. I've been on Sprout just a couple of months. I'm kind of new to Princeton, but old to Princeton. I grew up here. So I'm very familiar with all the buildings in Princeton and the historic architecture. I've also served on planning and zoning boards in Berners Township, as well as Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I served on the Historic Commission when I was part of the planning board in Charlotte.
Wow. Well, that's a lot of experience.
Welcome.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
welcome. That's
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
So, and so Steve will be an alternate member, and we're still looking for another alternate member for HPC, but, you know, we're so happy to have you, and Leighton, so glad that you're going to be our liaison. Very, very thrilled with that. So welcome, everyone.
Welcome, Steve.
Thanks. So our
Thank you.
first application is 974 Mercer Road.
Oops.
And I didn't know if David, are you going to chair this part, or do you want me to, or?
It's all about your comfort.
Okay. I mean, I guess I can do it, because these are friends of mine, but I don't think I don't know. I think it's okay.
But you didn't
Ed?
draw anything for it or contribute to it, the project. I'm just
No.
asking the questions.
No, but
Then-
I'm just putting it out there that these are my friends. Okay.
I don't actually see the applicants here yet,
Okay.
but should you, which
Well,
is
do you see,
unusual.
you see the applicants for 140 Quaker?
Just only one of them. Oh, no, wait, two. Wait a minute. Let me see. People are moving around. Okay. Yes, I see one, two. Yes. I
Well,
do
why don't we
see-
start with 140 Quaker,
Okay.
and then we'll do 974 second.
Okay. Let me just do that then.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nishi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you for hearing us.
Okay,
Oh,
Nishi,
thanks
I'm
for
also-
coming in today.
I'm also bringing in James Dillon.
Great. So
Right.
Mr. Dillon is my father-in-law. My wife Nora and I, we are the co-owners of 140 Quaker Road.
Okay. Is your wife attending with you on your account?
No, we're in different places. I'm not sure if she's going to join.
Okay.
I think we can get going.
Okay,
good. I
thank
just wanna
you.
make sure, did he, I don't know what's going on. James Dillon is not moving over.
He might just be listening. So I think we're fine to keep going if you guys want, just in the interest of time.
Okay.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I'd like to start with Elizabeth since she wrote a report on the project. Elizabeth, you want to give an overview?
Sure. Hold on, I gotta reorganize which one's coming first now. Okay, so, yes. So Nishi Gupta and Nora Dillon have filed an application to elevate their existing house on the property that has an address of 140 Quaker Road. It's further identified as block 9901, lot 1 on the Princeton tax map. The site is located in the former Princeton Township R3 zone. The property falls within the Princeton Battlefield and Stony Brook Settlement Historic District of the Municipal Overlay Zoning Map. It is also in 2 state and national register of historic places, Princeton Battlefield, Stony Brook Village Historic District, and Kings Highway Upper Road, Lincoln Highway Historic District. The property is designated on Princeton Historic Overlay as type 1, which is subject to preservation plan review for any changes visible for the type 1 district or from the public right of way. It also includes visible parameters, including painting or adding other surface coloring to an unpainted surface that is substantially out of character with the type 1 district within which the structure is located. The applicants are new property owners of 140 Quaker Road. Significant ground and flood waters from the Stony Brook floodway completely flooded the basement and penetrated water into their first floor during the Ida storm. They wish to avoid future flooding by elevating their house 5.7 feet higher. In addition to elevating the house, there are other building alterations they're requesting. The house is currently within the minimum front setback, and elevating the house constitutes a change to a non-compliant condition. Therefore, they require a C1 variance. So because of that, the jurisdiction is in the zoning board, which HPC serves as advisory to their board, and HPC shall review the preservation plan and provide its comments to the planning board, the zoning board of jurisdiction. Just a little history on the district. The Stony Brook settlement was founded close to the 17th century by several Quaker families, many of whom owned large parcels of land near the brook. The nucleus of this community was strengthened when the Stony Brook Quakers built a meeting house adjacent to the stream in 1727. And although the community developed slow after the official organization of the Stony Brook meeting houses were gradually built along Stockton Road. And the increase of the overland travel between New York City and Philadelphia, which ran along Stockton and Lawrenceville Road, also emphasized building new homes on that road because of that heavily trafficked road. The historic district is classified by is characterized by the spatial relationship of buildings to farmland that depicts rural communities throughout New Jersey during the 18th century and a high incidence of buildings that stood during the Battle of Princeton. So the subject lot is comprised of 1.258 acres of land, and it sits on the corner of Quaker Road and Mercer Road, which is also known as State Highway 206 and Kings Highway. The property is triangular shaped, and the most acute corner actually sits at that intersection of Mercer and Quaker Road. The north of Mercer Road and the east side of Quaker Road are lined with residential properties. There is minimum land on the west side of Quaker Road, which is undeveloped and is in close proximity to the Stony Brook. The existing house is believed to have been constructed in the 18th century. The mid-19th century additions were added, and the house is 2-story with 2 chimneys and a random fieldstone foundation. And in your package is the 1981 architectural survey. The proposed application is that the applicant wishes to elevate, as discussed, 5.7 feet higher, making the finished first floor elevation 6.5 feet above the outside grade. The proposed finished first floor will be 4 feet 6 3/8 inch above the Ida water elevation. And within the package on the drawings, you could see what they've provided. And below in the report, you'll see it talks about the new second floor elevation, the new finished floor elevation, the ductwork elevation, the IDA stormwater elevation, and the existing finished floor elevation, and then the FEMA flood hazard elevation. So there's a sequence on the plans that you can see. The overall height of the new elevated building will be 28.11 feet. Other changes to the house include on the lower level and the foundation that the existing basement windows and crawl space ventilations will be infilled. The brickstone foundation will be concrete capped to provide a solid level surface in preparation for the raised first floor. Mortar color will be tanglewood. On the north elevation, the existing porch slab will be demolished and replaced with a new concrete slab, and it'll be positioned 7 inches below the front door sill. New concrete steps will be added. New porch railings will be installed for the porch and stairs. An existing door on the elevation will be replaced with a window. And on the south elevation, they are going to replace the porch with new wood decking and install new wood stairs. The existing porch footprint will be enlarged to 6 feet wider, and that porch roof will be extended and replaced with a standing seam metal roof. The plans indicate that the porch railings, the baluster spindles, and the newel posts, or the wall newel posts, sorry, that's a spelling error, will be constructed of Western cedar and painted Benjamin Moore white. So this application is within the zoning board jurisdiction. So HPC serves as advisory, in which they should determine whether they support or do not support this application or make recommendations to the zoning board. As we go down and we talk about the general recommendation comments, the first one is that the elevating the building itself actually really does alter the character of the house. It really makes it look more like a 21st century house style, which all of you have seen, which it's elevated and, you know, it kind of is kind of mounded up to make it more visible. However, you know, there's a reason for this. I mean, this structure has had damage, and any flood is devastating to a resident, and it's not sustainable for it to be left in that position. And so with the increase of rainstorm and intensity, which I think they were all agreeing is not going to go away, it's not an isolated instance. The commission is familiar with other properties that have also had this problem. One is Mr. Wasco's house. There's Dr. Carmen, which is across the stream from him. There's another one that we're looking at also on Quaker Road that they'll be coming in. So these houses that are so close to the Stony Brook are really very vulnerable in their location. So, you know, for HPC, although the historic character of the house is important, if it's not going to be able to maintain itself in a safe condition, then you know, there's really no preservation going on, because the house could really be just swept away. Let's see, what else I have. The plans indicate the lower level will be infilled to prevent water penetration. The applicant should consider allowing water to pass through and out of this level. Now, the commission is familiar with this because the Friends School had come in for a barn, which actually had that criteria set. And I believe that those were criteria set for by the state. And I guess we're going to ask the applicant if they could discuss if this is a criteria that needs to be met. And probably it's something that your engineer might have talked to you about, or your architect. The plans indicate that the FEMA flood hazard elevation is 74.3 feet. And the water elevation for IDA was 77.4 feet, which is 1.1 foot above the finished first floor elevation, which is the existing one. But the proposed elevation is 62 feet. So the applicant is asked how the new finished floor elevation was determined. We were also asked if they had any topography on their property and if they had considered possibly moving the house out of the flood zone if that was an option, if there was area on their land where the topography was high enough. We would also like to see a product sheet of the standing seam roof and discuss the color. Also talk about the style, size, and material of the new windows on the north elevation. And modifications will be made to the house, such as removal of a door and entry roof and replacing with a window, the extension of a porch and roof and new standing seam roof. So the commission is asked to review these alterations in addition to the elevation and see if these changes in material is considered appropriate. For the applicant, they're asked if they can confirm the two porch railings will be the same material, style, and color, which is the product design sheet that was included in the package. The applicants also asked to explain how the patio and landscape that exists, currently exists, how that will be treated with the new change in the building elevation. And the last is if they have considered any sustainable measures with the raising of their house.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. I guess now I want to give the applicant a turn to talk about the process and just let us know how things are going.
Sure. Just to give everyone a sense of kind of where we are. So Ida was, I think, September 1 or September 2nd. I did want to set the stage a little bit and say that prior to even Ida, what we noticed in normal rainstorms, like, normal rainstorms, is that I would say 60% of our backyard is completely flooded, is a lake, because of the location of the house and because of the topography and elevation. So, and because of the way I think water has been designed to drain in that area, water will flow down Mercer and all of the houses on that side and come across our property. So you're getting that from the Mercer side across, basically across, and then there was a culvert put in our backyard at some point historically. The culvert actually is pretty small relative to the amount of water that flows down from the Mercer side. And so our entire backyard, even a normal rainstorm, not entire, I would say about 67% of the backyard is a lake. Like, you can go out there. I have video where our kids are out there in rain boots because they thought it was really cool. But you have, knee deep water, ankle to knee deep water in about 67% of the backyard coming from the Mercer side. And because that culvert is so small, it pools and it takes some time to drain. So that happens in a regular rainstorm. We also noticed that if you have successive regular rainstorms, on the Quaker side, the Stony Brook's elevation increases very quickly. So you can actually look out from Quaker Road, and normally where the Stony Brook is mostly gravel and there's very little water, after 2 or 3 regular summer rainstorms, you can actually see the height of the water and the Stony Brook flowing from one of our living room windows, which is about a 12 to 16 to 18 foot rise in the gauge level from regular rainstorms. And so that was pretty shocking to see that. So what happened in Ida was that essentially following Floyd, which followed regular rainstorms, Ida, the water was just too much. It came over, it flows essentially across from the Stony Brook. It hits up against our fence and flows in that way, but you're also getting the water flowing down from the Mercer side. So you're basically getting the property, you have 2 sources of water converging on the property from either side. The culvert is no longer effective because the Quaker side is completely flooded. So the water just pools. And during the course of Ida, the entire house was surrounded by water, literally the entire house. And we had our basement entirely full to the ceiling. And we had about, I think, between 1 and 2.5 feet of water in the entirety of our first floor. So effectively, since September 2nd, we've been unable to live in the house. We've had to live in an apartment in Princeton. There's no gas. The electricity is on. We were able to get that back on to start doing the mitigation. But there's no gas, there's electricity, there's no water. And the house has been winterized to avoid any pipes bursting since then. But we effectively have not been able to live in the house. And we only moved in on July 8th of this year. So the goal here is to determine what we can do to try and avoid this happening again. I don't want to our initial thought was to just fix the house up and start living in it. But given that this happened after a series of relatively normal rainstorms and just seeing how much that water rises in the Stony Brook on a regular basis, I have zero confidence that if we don't raise the house, we're not going to get sort of destructive flooding again relatively soon. So the goal here is really simple. It's to raise the house to a height that we've sort of talked with. We hired an engineer and an architect, both of who have provided their insights in developing these plans to determine what that new height is. Unfortunately, the FEMA numbers are outdated, so we had to use the IDA number as sort of our going forward benchmark. And the goal is simple: raise the house to a level where we think we will withstand any future flooding, and then keep the house, the character of the house on the inside and the outside, largely consistent with what it's been. We're not looking to make significant changes. In the report, it mentions that there's going to be a removal of a window and a door on one side of the house, which is on a newer part of the house that was renovated in the 90s. If that's a problem, I'm happy to undo that. We can keep that window and door. But the goal is really very simple. We're not looking to make dramatic changes to the house. We just want to put the house in a position where we can sustain it and we can use it.
Well, first of all, our sympathies. I mean, we've had affected by Ida and storms before that. And yeah, it was a devastating storm, and I don't think it's going to be the last. So you're right. As far as, our input, like Elizabeth said, we're advisory to zoning, and I'm assuming you're going to be at zoning in like a week or so, pretty soon.
It's on the 19th. Actually, our building permit has been approved already. So we have that. I just haven't picked it up because they said to wait till after the zoning hearing. With the respect to the zoning issue, that is on the, and I'm sorry, I don't know all the same directions. So on the Quaker side of the house is very close to the road. So I think that's where there is an existing variance exception. I'm sorry, zoning variance exception. And so we're asking for that to continue. We're not going to make that exception any worse or better. So it's literally just leaving it flat. So I believe that's the issue with the zoning board, which I've been told is relatively a non-issue at this point because we have the permit.
Okay, great. So, and then my other point is that, I'm really familiar with the elevation of the barn over at the Princeton Friends School because I'm a member of the Princeton Friends meeting and I'm at that property all the time. And I really feel like that barn has been renovated beautifully and it contributes to the district. It looks great. And, before this, it was falling apart. And after they elevated it, it's much more substantial. And, we still, it was a way to save the barn. So I think it was a very successful project. And I don't know, even though it's several feet higher, I still feel that it's contributing to the district. Other comments, questions for the applicant?
Sorry, I realized I didn't address a couple of things that I probably should. So my general comment about the character of the home was just to say that to the extent that there are questions here about materials or railings or what they're going to look like, the goal is to literally have the house look exactly as it does today, but just be higher off the ground. Now, the issue with that delta between kind of where the visual bottom of the house sits today and where it will be in the future, we're going to have to submit a second set of plans that are more sort of meaty with all the renovations and all the fixing that we have to do inside and outside. And I think I'm open to sort of working with the commission on like, what should that delta look like? Should it just look like the existing house, but more of it, or should it be something else, right? We're sort of open to talking about that. With respect to the floodgates. So I think the plans that we submitted to the building department were later in time than when we submitted to HPC. And since then, we've actually added floodgates. We were sort of going back and forth. So there will be floodgates. And the goal is very much to allow water to come in, have smart gates so that the gates only go up when there's water present. Water comes in, water goes out, water flows underneath the house, and then water leaves when it recedes. Because what I've noticed is that even though the Stony Brook raises very quickly, it also recedes relatively quickly. And so that's very much the goal here. For points 7, 8, and 9, yes, the railings for the front and back will be the same. Frankly, to the extent that we have porches, they'll all be the same. The materials will be the same. With respect to point 8, the landscaping. So, when you raise the home, you basically have to decimate large sections of landscaping around the house just to get the steel beams in place. I did meet with the house raiser last week, and actually we'll be able to minimize the amount of landscaping that has to be removed. And then the goal is to kind of try and put it back as close to possible. Now, for folks who are familiar with the house, the prior owner had his own landscaping business and had really impressive gardens in the back. To be honest with you, I don't know if I'll be able to replicate all those gardens, but to the extent that we can maintain the landscaping as it was, we'll try and do our best to do that. With respect to point 9 on sustainability, I looked at that list. Most of those things, like they seem like they're more specific to larger sort of commercial development projects. Given what we're trying to do with the raise, I mean, essentially what they're going to do is, to the extent that there's things that are brought into the property, they're going to stay on the property. We're not going to be leaving stuff on the street. We're not going to be leaving, things anywhere else. Any dirt or earth that is excavated as part of the house raising will be left on our property and then reused to fill that back in. And so unless, happy to take questions on other sort of green and sustainable things that we have to think about, but just given that we're only excavating to raise and then building up the foundation, I just didn't see other things that seemed super relevant at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, other comments, questions?
I don't have a comment, but is your house next to the driveway of the school, the Quaker school on the corner? I'm just trying to place where your house is.
No, I don't think so. This house is on the corner of Quaker and Mercer. So,
it's across the road.
Oh, is that white building across the way?
Yeah.
That's across the street.
That's not the school, but that's next to the school. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, currently there's a big stockade fence. When you're coming up Quaker, I guess it's north toward 206, towards Stockton. The house is not very visible. Actually, it'll be more visible once it's raised up. I mean, the fence may not always be there, but in terms of the visibility of the house, people coming from Parkside, the other direction, that's really the only way you can see the house, and there's very little traffic going that way. So I don't see a huge impact on the district just from the way the house is situated. And I guess ultimate landscaping could affect the way the house appears coming south on Quaker. If you know, Quaker becomes one way past Parkside. So there's very little, I'm repeating myself, but there's very little traffic coming the other way. So I could see landscaping softening the increased height, depending on what the ultimate landscaping looks like. And I guess my only question is the question that Elizabeth raised is how the actual height was determined in terms of the.
I can answer that. So partially it was using the IDA elevation, which we determined by literally, there's no data yet on exactly the water in the like there's data on the on a gauge website that tells you how much the water rose historically, but there's no, like, the FEMA hasn't updated any of these maps yet. So we just literally used the height of where the debris was in the fence there's a visible water line on our property. So we used that, plus we wanted to build in a buffer. I think there's like a 1 or 2 foot buffer that's required. And I apologize, I can't remember if this is municipal or state law, but there's a 1 or 2 foot buffer that's required from where the bottom of your like lowest point relative to where you think the water is going to be. So the number here was just basically trying to build this Venn diagram of how high do we need to go to kind of be safe for as long as possible. How high do we have to go so we're not this like gigantic structure sitting in the middle of nowhere and that is super visible to everyone else. And finally, what makes sense in light of the IDA flood height or the water height. That's basically how we determine. And I hired an engineer and an architect who used data to figure these things out. The one thing I
Thank
would
you.
add as far as visibility of the house, so there aren't many, I mean, there are properties nearby, but the houses that are close are not, like, we're not looking at each other's windows. I'm sure everyone knows this. Plus there's a significant ingrowth of bamboo on the Quaker side. And that's pretty tall. And I think even with the raised height, you certainly would not be able to see it from the Quaker side. I'm sorry, from the Mercer side. Even on the side of the house closer to Stockton, I mean, there are significant large trees that are basically surrounding the property. So I think even with the additional height, it's not gonna, I don't think it's suddenly gonna be this thing that is sticking out to the rest of the district, the neighborhood.
Yeah, David?
I don't know the procedure. Would we be able to have a landscape subcommittee look at this later on, or is this like a one and done for our input?
I think,
You could make a recommendation in your memo.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we could include in the memorandum a recommendation as the applicant offered to continue to work with the HPC on the exterior appearance of the property, including the landscaping. And you could have a minor, you could request that a HPC minor subcommittee be set up to work with the applicant once they get ready to go.
So
I-
oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I was going to say, I will have to submit another set of plans for the work that has to be done on the inside of the house, right? Because that's going to be, I'm trying to do this as fast as possible because we can't live in the house. And I have 3 small kids who sort of been massively disrupted by all of this. And we are now in 2022, and it's probably going to be like a year and a half until we can get back in the house, into a house that we only moved in 2 months or 3 months prior. So I've tried to bifurcate these 2 projects, get the house up and then go on the inside. So my understanding and my thought, which again, it's subject to the commission, was that in the process of submitting another set of plans for the remediation work inside would be where all of these things would come into play, because I'd have to get approval for that.
Right. So I guess the reason I was asking is the raising of the house and how that ultimately looks is the most significant thing going on here. And it may be that we all could be very happy with some sort of screening, fencing solution that, as Roger was pointing out, we can't see a lot of the house already because of the stockade. Not that that's what we're saying has to be put back, but maybe there's good opportunity that once that structure is, or that substructure, I guess is what you're calling that base, is more known, that we can maybe make some more recommendations about blocking it or hiding it. And I guess my other question was to Elric, that there have been buildings next to streams historically, mostly mill kind of buildings, but we are seeing more flood and damage these days. But buildings must have been raised previously when they were threatened by water rising. And I just wondered if there's any precedent, any design style or whatever that you've seen that would be appropriate to try to incorporate here, to put you on the spot.
We don't have Robert on board. He moved up an extra story in his mill.
Right.
The mill where our offices used to be was flooded up to 24 feet above flood stage, up to the 3rd floor, and the house beside it was up to the chimneys. I think we're just living in a different world. I do have some questions. Elizabeth asked, and I'm curious about, well, first of all, are you planning on reusing any of the existing foundation?
The entirety of it.
Just raising it. So
Yep.
I thought about it with my house here because I can't stand up down there, and that's where I do the laundry. I am curious. 5 feet is a lot. Elizabeth asked whether or not there was another area on the property to which it could be moved, but I gather My recollection is it's pretty flat, and you're saying you're going to reuse the foundations.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely considered that. And the way, and I apologize for not answering that earlier. That's one I missed. The choice to leave it was based on a few things. One, just given the age of the house, like, you know, I think it's much more dangerous to lift it and move it. Plus, this house has it's really three components that have been put together. There's the original two-story house. There's the sort of middle two-story addition on one side, and then the most modern 1999 forward two-story addition on the other side. And so, to be honest with you, I'm pretty concerned that if I try and move it, like, it's just going to be worse for the house. Like there's certainly going to be some impact, hopefully non-structural, to the house when we raise it, just because given the age. But I think trying to move it will increase that. I think raising it, from what I've heard from just a few experts I've talked to, is relatively low risk at this day and age. Apparently, like, it's pretty common and people do it pretty easily. The second thing is that while there is a higher portion of the home, basically where our cars were parked, the driveway, it's a relatively small portion. And then I think you run into a increasing variance risk on the other side, because you're going to have so much more of the house on only one small portion of the property. Three, we have a septic system. And so if you move the house, you're going to encroach on the septic system. And four, the extensive, I think, earthing and grading will be much more extensive to move the house, because the whole property is on an angle, more or less. And actually, the last point is that if I move the whole house over there and have to account for the septic system and just the way the house is, I worry that the water that comes down from Mercer, which I can't control, right, because it's runoff from other houses, I'm basically moving towards that problem, as opposed to dealing with the Stony Brook problem by raising it.
The point I guess I would be most appreciative of is that the house will preserve its original context on the property and its relationship to the road. And you mentioned interior considerations in the future. We have no sway over the interior. Our concerns are the exterior and landscaping and all of that.
Okay.
Two quick questions though. First of all, the culvert, is that part of your property, or is that part of the municipality, or who's purview?
So I assumed it was the municipality. The prior owner told me that the Princeton Township put it in, but it definitely, it's on our property. It's under, basically, if you walk down the Quaker Road side of that fence, there's like, it looks like the railings of a bridge, I think, on Quaker Road. That's where the culvert is, and it goes from our property, and on our side there's a whole ditch that's been dug with stones, and you can see the culvert, and it goes across, presumably underneath that large swath of greenery, to Stony Brook. That's what I assumed.
Sense from your engineer whether or not having a larger culvert or configuring it could help to mitigate the problem from the Mercer Road side in any event, so you don't get the confluence?
Yeah, I hadn't had him look at that. Maybe I will. I mean, to be honest with all of you, the drainage from Mercer and the runoff that, I mean, my sense is that Stony Brook, and I've only dug into this a little bit, Stony Brook is a man-made floodway. It's obviously, I don't think it's a natural river. And so that whole issue of that water management, I haven't yet dug into that with the town, and I probably will, because the amount of water that basically converges on our property just seems pretty shocking.
It would just seem to me that before setting your sights on 5'7" or 5.7 feet, if it turned out that the professional engineers felt that the water coming from Mercer, as opposed to just Stony Brook, could be better conveyed, it's an important consideration. And finally, with the foundations, if you're going to keep the foundations, I see concrete, but and I gather that each of the 3 unit parts of the house have different foundations, stone and brick and something else.
Yeah, the original foundation is what you would imagine. It's a series of stone slabs, sort of put in place. And then the more modern side of the house looks like it has a modern foundation with a crawl space as opposed to a standing basement. It looks like the original part of the house has had the original foundation covered with something, because you can't see the stone, but you can see it on the sort of middle part of the house.
I would just hope that it's possible to call out the fact that it's a generational house and the foundations would be different, remain different, but that the materials, if possible, be the same. And we went through all the test panels for the bridge down the road from you, and there are talented stonemasons, and we could recommend 1 or 2 who could do a good job. The brick wouldn't be a problem, and if it turns out that it was originally stucco, that would be preferable than just something which looks too modern. And finally, the landscaping, as Roger's pointed out, is really important one way or the other. You seem to feel like it will fit the property better if it is raised, at least to some degree. Those are going to be our greatest concerns, I think. My only other thing would be the balusters. You're going to replicate the balusters on one side on one porch from the ones on the other?
Yeah, they'll be the same. That's right.
And what are they? Are they square or my package never came through, so I haven't seen any of the visuals.
I don't remember. Yeah, they're going to be turned in to match the existing on the new deck area. The front porch was added in the more recent renovation and doesn't currently have a rail. The balusters on that side are going to be square in profile, so they'll match.
Good.
Yep.
That's what I wanted to know. Good.
So
Okay.
just to go back to 1 second, to the question about the culvert, I think potentially that might help with the amount of water that comes down Mercer. But the water that comes down Mercer, at least since the 3 months that I lived there, from the few storms that happened, that water doesn't encroach on the house. It covers the majority of the yard. I mean, the yard there is pretty substantial. And so that water doesn't encroach on the house. So frankly, like if that continued, if that was the only thing we were worrying about, we'd have no problem. The problem with the culvert is that if there's water on Quaker Road, or if the Stony Brook is elevated, the water doesn't drain. Doesn't matter how big the culvert is, right? Because it just doesn't have anywhere to go. And so the larger issue here, the one that is not really under the purview of this commission, is just the amount of water that's coming into this one narrow space that looks like it's runoff from development in other places. And that seems to be the biggest issue.
Have you looked at any? They're up in North Branch, New Jersey, for instance, where they've had quite a lot of flooding from the Raritan. The North Branch of the Raritan. They raised quite a few houses after Hurricane Floyd, and some of them were pretty successful, and other ones just really are not at all successful. And it would seem to me like it would be worth a field trip for you and your architect to go up and take a look at the ones that sort of are more compatible with their surroundings, and maybe pick up a few notions that could be helpful to what you're doing.
Sure, happy to do it. I mean, if you or anyone else in the commission has addresses of places that you think where it's been done well, I'm happy to look at it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just want to share with Mr. Gupta that I think that it is worthwhile for you to at least talk to the municipal engineer about that culvert, because even if you're saying if it was just the water that was coming off of Mercer onto your property, you probably wouldn't have a flooding problem. I actually don't think that's true, because I think what's happening, it's infiltrating in the ground and then it's rising up from underneath. So if your subsurface is saturated, it's still going to come up that way. But in any case, I think that if you have an opportunity to eliminate any water on your property, and that is a municipal culvert, I think that it's worth for you to discuss it with them and let them know that there's a problem and see if there's something that they can do in the future. And also, if you're getting a lot of runoff from your neighbors as well, there is a limited amount of runoff that's permitted. I mean, depending on how it, what it is, if it's just natural runoff, or if it's like roof drains that are draining in your direction, they're actually supposed to maintain it on their property. So I would reach out to them and try to address as much as the water that you can that's coming from any direction.
Okay.
And just so you know, on the other side of the Stony Brook up on Lawrenceville Road, as I said, that there were two property owners on both sides of the stream there, and one of them has reached out to NJDOT, who actually was working on the bridge improvements on the Stony Brook Bridge. And they have asked for them to, I believe because of the storm, that they are going to be doing some improvements over there, which is going to affect your stream, your portion of the stream as well. So hopefully whatever they do is going to
In a
alleviate.
good way. We're not going to get more
Yes.
water, right?
Yes,
Okay.
no. They were flooded pretty bad. They were both sides. They were flooded very, very bad. So hopefully, and I would also encourage you to reach out. I think
I
the
will.
more squeaky wheels they hear,
Yep.
the more they're going to do.
Yeah, once we get past this, then that's on my list. Yep.
So I just want to ask the commission if there's other suggestions, and if not, if we are unanimous to endorse the idea of raising the building and sending a memo to zoning, then who then would have final jurisdiction over this. But I mean, I feel strongly that it's got to be raised. I see over at the Friends School, the barn, I think, was a really successful project. And if they hadn't raised the barn, they wouldn't have one anymore. So it's just the kind of reality of the situation in that area. The water's pretty intense.
And I'm glad that the applicant's engineer has incorporated the louvers, because I think that that's really helpful. You don't want to try to keep water out because it's going to get in.
Oh,
there.
yeah. No, I don't want,
The easier you can get it in and out, I think it's going to be better for your house.
yeah, I don't want to have a foundation wall collapse. So, yeah.
Right. Right. So are we okay with recommending this to the zoning board and recommending that input on landscaping happen at a certain point later down the line?
Landscaping and foundations.
Mm-hmm. Foundation materials. Right, okay. Right, yeah, David?
I think we should go on record kind of saying this is not our favorite approach. And as Elric was pointing out, there's some in other towns that have been done and they come out really funny looking and difficult, and some come out all right. But probably what Mr. Gupta doesn't know is, as I sit here in one of the historic houses of the Stony Brook settlement that didn't have bad water damage, and I'm feeling so guilty and so lucky all at the same time, that I have to feel like we have to do something for these buildings. I think that even historically, if there'd been floods and things, people would have figured out practical things to do with their houses, because houses were moved and saved and reused, that there would have been whatever technology of the day would have allowed, people would have done that. We're not supposed to project what someone would do to a historic house and say, oh yeah, they would have put this beautiful Palladian window in the front. We can't do that, but we can say, I think, with some confidence that people would have taken measures to raise their houses. And just, it's not the prettiest solution always, but it sounds like we're taking a very careful approach here. And that in this particular case, it may be what raises the house up is not going to be seen that much. Whereas some of the ones up in the areas that we've visited, you see these very funny new foundations under these houses, and they look bizarre. So I'm just thinking for the record that, yeah, we don't love this concept and don't want to always just say, oh yeah, sure, that's a solution. That we want to say that, after careful thought, and that there really doesn't seem to be another solution to save this house. As you brought up earlier, we would have lost it altogether if we say no, that we're supportive of this project. But it's a case by case situation.
David, I agree, but I think we have to recognize, as we've said already, that the climate is changing. This is happening more often. This is the quote new normal, that we're getting 100-year floods every 15 years, or more frequently. So it may mean that we have to that we have to adjust our standards.
Yeah, and just if I could say, I mean, look, we're obviously not going to like put the house on stilts, right? We're not looking to do that. And I would say all I'm trying to do is make sure the house survives whatever the actual new 100-year flood will be, right? Because it's not what it has been. So
yeah, no.
Okay. All right. Any Ed, do you think you have enough for a memo, or?
Madam Chair, we do. We have a memo. I think we got plenty for a memo. And on the timing, I'll work with Elizabeth to get the memo to her tomorrow so that you can circulate it this week and get it over to the zoning board quickly.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Mr. Gupta. I really, really hope that all of this work can go smoothly, and we'll try to attend the zoning board meeting to encourage the approval.
okay, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
All right. Is
Yes,
Marcia's here?
yes.
Okay. There she is. Hi, Marcia.
Hello. Can you see us and hear us?
Yep, we see you. We hear you. I warned everyone that you guys are my friends, so I'm cheering, but not out there. So Elizabeth, do you want to start by introducing the project?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hold on. I got to reposition again. Okay. So the applicants are Bruce and Marcia Wilsey, who have filed an application pursuant to the Princeton's Historic Preservation Ordinance to demolish an existing garage and build a new garage in the same location. The site is known as 974 Mercer Road and further identified as Block 10-10-2, Lot 11 on the Princeton tax map. The property contains 3.5 acres and lies within the former Princeton Township R1 zone. The plans were reviewed by the zoning officer, and he advises no variants are required with this application. So this application falls completely in the jurisdiction of the Historic Preservation Commission. So obviously the history of the project, of the property, of the district is the same as the one that we had just heard on 140 Quaker Road. So to further continue, so this project is situated on the northbound side of Mercer Road near the corner of Gallup Road. The house on the property is 2.5 story. The front door faces south with a Stony Brook to its east. The house was built circa 1760 to 1775 in the federal style, and Georgian federal era additions were added to original building. The building has a fieldstone foundation, clapboard siding, and a gable roof and 2 end chimneys. There is a two-story wood frame garage, which is situated near the side property line, slightly southwest of the house. It is an open two-car garage that has a stone foundation, vertical sideboards, and an asphalt shingle roof. There is a small 4-pane square window and a door on the west side of the building. This property is also designated in Type 2 Historic Preservation District, which is subject to preservation plan review for any visible changes from Type 1 districts or from the public right-of-way. And its visible parameters, again, include painting or adding other surface coloring that is substantially out of character with the Type 1 district in which the district is located. Some of you may remember these applicants came before HPC in September 2018 to construct a conservatory addition to the existing house. So again, as part of this application, the applicant wishes to demolish the existing one-story garage and build a new one in the same location. The applicant indicates the new garage has been designed to match the appearance and feature of the historic house. It has incorporated black panel shutters, a similar pitch roof line, and it'll be painted white. It'll have the same footprints dimensions as exists, which is 22 by 30. And as the height of the new garage will be increased to 5 feet 8 3/4 inches. The new roof pitch will be symmetrical with a 1-foot overhang. The foundation will be constructed using the same stone as existing foundation. There'll be 2 6/6 double hung windows on each elevation of the garage, and except on the southwest side, which will have 2 overhead garage doors. A glass and panel door will be centered on the west side of the garage between 2 windows, and gutters will be installed along the north and south roof line with corner downspouts. So there'll also be new lighting that's going to match in style and size to the lighting on the house, which was previously approved as part of the conservatory addition. There'll be 3 light fixtures mounted on the south elevation and evenly spaced between the garage doors. So just to go down to comments, let's see. So it's not known if the existing garage has any historic significance to itself. The house on the property to the historic district or as representation of any history worthy of preserving. So the stone foundation may have been the remains of an older structure that was destroyed and repurposed for the current garage. So HBC should consider its worth. It is recommended that all siding and trim and doors have a smooth finish if this application is approved. The applicant should address where the roof leaders will discharge. It's recommended all new utilities be located underground, and the applicant is asked to address if they have considered any sustainable measures as part of this project. Thank you.
Okay, well, anyway, it sounds good. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Marcia. Do you guys want to say anything or share your screen? Oh, Ed, you got to swear them in.
Mr. and Ms. Wilson, you swear the testimony you're about to give is truthful.
We do.
Thank you. It's all yours.
The point of this project is literally to replace a building that at this point, or a structure that at this point is beginning to collapse. Some time ago, we believe that this open garage shed was probably built in the 60s, maybe early 70s, coinciding with the owners who had just recently purchased the house at that time. There was substantial sagging of the center of the garage, and that had to be lifted up and a new beam put in order to support it and keep it from sagging any further. At this point, it is our opinion that there is nothing left to save there, that it is not, other than the foundation, right? The foundation, again, we are not certain of the date of that foundation, but we are also not talking about destroying it. There does need to be a little masonry work done on the foundation, but the new garage will sit on exactly the same footprint as the present garage. The new garage is designed to be much more compatible with the appearance of the historic house. So as Ms. Kim had noted, the color schemes will be the same. We'll be using similar high quality wooden painted shutters around the windows, the same ball and ball lighting fixtures that are on the conservatory addition to the house. In the pitch, oh no, it is, I was able to find it. So as much as possible, we are trying to, by replacing this garage, create a structure that not only won't fall down on our cars, but will be enclosed with regular garage doors and will be compatible with the appearance of the house. Ms. Kim brought up some of the issues of drainage. We've been advised that we can run the drainage down on the, as you are facing the garage, on the right-hand side of it from the gutters on the front and the back. In terms of sustainability, the landscaping we are anticipating doing around the house is actually no great change from around the garage. It's no great change from what is there right now. So there is a planting area on the north side that extends out about 7 or 8 feet from the stone foundation. That planting area will continue to be there. And then there is a very small planting area on the, as you are facing the front of the garage on the left-hand side, closest to the house. But it, at this point, is a very simple planting area, and it's only about, I guess, 3 feet wide. It is the side where the new entry door into the garage will be, and then there will be some stone steps that make their way toward the house.
All right, well, sounds good. Do members have any questions or comments? And did you want to share your screen or show anything, or your, oh, I know we have the documents too.
Right, I don't know that there's any, we weren't prepared for that. I don't know
Okay,
that there's anything else to show, frankly.
that's fine. That's fine. We all have copies and everything. So I'll just go around for comments. Elric, any comments?
Yep.
Okay.
First of all, I want to commend you for the stewardship that you've had with the house. It's a house that I went trick-or-treating there 70 years ago, more than once. And are you in the kitchen now, or the lean-to? That was a separate half of the house in those days, and one of my mother's friends lived there. So I've known the property for a long time. The Updikes who lived there in the main part of the house had been there for generations, and there are a lot of photographs. And Frank Updike, the oldest son, was something of an historian and wrote extensively about the farm. The reason why the Updikes left about the same time that we moved to Province Line Road, they did too, because their youngest child, Renee Updike, was one of the last to get polio and lost use of her legs and one arm. And that house was not compatible to a person in a wheelchair. The building you mentioned, the existing building, I've been looking at for years and thinking that's just got to go. And it's, I mean, it really is a very unfortunate structure, and it's always been surprising to me that it hasn't collapsed long since. I think it was used for chickens way back when. I may be wrong. Most of the Updike buildings, the farm buildings, were across the road, as you know. In fact, the other Updike house where the grandfather lived, it's on the north side, northeast side of the road. That said, you mentioned that this will be much more compatible with the house. It certainly is almost anything will be more compatible with the house than the structure that's there now. I fully appreciate the fact that it's about to disappear. I just feel though, somehow I'm disappointed because it seems to me this is a remarkable opportunity to complement the house with a structure that it isn't exactly house-like, but it has something more to do with the kinds of straightforward buildings that would have been part of that farmstead when it had outbuildings. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity, and in some ways, the building that you contemplate is more compatible with the houses that were built in the 1960s that more or less surround you than the historic structure itself. And for instance, the shutters. You've never seen an outbuilding with shutters. I know of one in Pennington, and it really is I could point out where it is, and I think you'd see that the shutters just don't belong. And this is an existing barn that somebody put shutters on about 15 years ago. The fact that you want to paint it the same way, use the same materials, the same lighting, I feel like there is a missed opportunity. I wanted to point out a few buildings that you might look at before you cement your plans. We had an application earlier this year from a very different building on the Pine Estate, where they decided to take a slab and create something like a carport, but they've done so without trying to mimic the buildings, but with the choice of materials and the scale and whatever. It's the Freeze property on the old Weidel greenhouse building there. Beyond that, though, take a look around in the neighborhood, and I mentioned a couple that you might look to for examples. One, of course, is at the Clark House, right up the road from you. It's a single garage, but it is a straightforward early outbuilding. Actually, one half of it has a lean-to, but whereas the siding on the house is clabbered, it seems to me, I could be wrong on this, that the siding there is vertical. It's just treated in a less decorative way. Another one is the Updike Farm, where the Historical Society is now, which still has one building, which was a wagon house corn crib, and the shape of it and the scale of it are very similar to what you're talking about with the footprint. And finally, there's one that I know pretty well because we put it there, and I'm not trying to gain business or whatever, but have you been to the Little's house, the stone house opposite David's on Stockton, which backs up on, is that Wynett Road, David?
Yeah, 100 Wynett Road.
Wynett. And that actually is a wagon house, which it is a separate structure, and it doesn't try to mimic the stone or whatever, but somehow I think they complement each other better. And I just really, I'm not trying to chastise you so much as just give you some possibilities, some other possibilities that in the end might be more pleasing, and where the structure really complements the house and vice versa, rather than trying to, look like a suburban garage. Sorry for the negativity, but all in all, what you've been doing has been really good for the house, and this seems like an opportunity that you can profit from. Thank you.
All right, well, are there other comments? I'm just questioning, Elric. Let's say that, for example, with this design, if we're without the shutters, do you think that would be an improvement?
Oh, yeah, of course it would. Of course it would. But you know, the way the glass, I'm actually designing 3 or 4 garages right now. And everything from a one that's complementing a Sears house out in Wisconsin to a couple of things out on Long Island. And so I've been looking at garages a lot. And they're just, there are so many opportunities for interesting structures, which I just don't think this one is. And it, the way the pediment is treated just doesn't. It looks like a tract house garage to me.
Well,
Sorry, I'm lighting here.
I mean, given that we're considering this application, like we don't have another application. We have this application. Whoa. I don't know where he went.
I'm here. I'm just trying to get the light plugged in. There we go.
Oh, okay, okay. We see again. Given that we have this application, so I don't know if you, I mean, we have to make a decision about this application, and so we can suggest modifications to this application, but we can't, you know, consider a new application at this hearing. So I'm just wondering, are there changes that you would suggest that would make, I know you want a different application, but I'm just saying, given that we're here and we don't really have a choice.
I appreciate your thought. I actually talked to Elizabeth about this when it was going to come up in October, I think October or November, and whether or not I could somehow get through to the Wilsies directly at that point. And she suggested that I wait until we had this opportunity to talk about it as a commission. So I don't want to be a total naysayer, but I do believe that there are features that could be improved, and the footprint, fine, the foundation, fine, the distance from the house, fine. I think it could be a more satisfying solution.
Telling us we lacked imagination.
Well,
Would the applicant be willing to work with Mr. Endersby to come up with a alternate style? Obviously the size would stay the same because you're using the same footprint, and I would think probably the height would stay approximately the same. Would the applicant be willing to do that?
We'd certainly be interested in such a discussion and seeing some examples of something that you think, Mr. Endersby, that you think might be more attractive on the property.
I can show you some. I hope to be away starting in 3 weeks, but in the meantime, I can get you some materials that I've been looking at. And I would also just, one of our former commission members, Brown Little, is the owner of that one right around the corner from you, really opposite David's house on Stockton. And take a look at that. That's, and the other ones I mentioned are all, you know, within 20 minutes, you could see 3 or 4 buildings and just scrutinize them a little bit. But I can get you some materials. And I'm, as I said, I'm not looking for business. I'm just, but this is like I told Alec, my business partner, we should change our name from New Jersey Barn to New Jersey Garage and Barn after this last year. I can't believe we've got a couple of wagon houses going up, and one is going to be brand new. Another, well, actually, they're both pretty new, but they're in Hopewell and Pennington. And so I've got drawings I could show you for that. But I think more important is just to point out some existing buildings that are very, you know, more straightforward. Take a look if you want in
Elric,
Cranberry
I'm just wondering,
Hopewell.
given that they have been waiting since October and they have this situation with their current garage, that, is there any kind of suggestions or modifications to this application that you can make that would like set better with you? Like, for example, remove the shutters. You know, that there's other modifications that can happen now, because there's also an architect. And this process is pretty lengthy, and it's also, I don't know, I mean, unless you just feel strongly enough that you personally want to deny the application, and that's okay, but then I have to go around to everybody else and find out what they think. So, you know.
I think what I'd probably rather do is not deny it, but just step back from it and not vote one way or the other on it.
Okay, well,
And
let's just
I
get,
can get materials if they're helpful, but I just want to make sure I'm recusing myself from any particular involvement beyond that.
okay, all right. Well, let me talk to David and Roger, Frida, Shirley. You know, I just want to make sure I get the whole scheme, the whole group out here chiming in on what they feel is appropriate. David, did you have any comments? You're on mute.
I guess I didn't have any comments originally, but have now been made to think some more. Let's see what some other people have to say.
Okay. Yeah, Roger.
I originally had a question about the shutters. Based on the elevation, the shutters look like they'd only cover half the window. I didn't know if that was done to scale. After listening to Elric, I guess I'm more in favor of getting rid of the shutters rather than fixing them to make sure that they're functional, or at least look functional. And I guess the windows are 6/6. I haven't checked the house, but I assume that mirrors the house, the double hung 6/6 panes. I'm fine with that, but then that seems a little bit out of keeping with the illustration of the actual garage door, which had a kind of curvilinear window treatment, which I thought didn't really could be simplified to kind of mirror the shape of the other windows. Other than that, I mean, again, with Ulrich's comments in mind, simplifying things, I think, would make it a little more appropriate.
Okay. I mean, that's helpful. Frida, did you have anything?
Not really. You know, I couldn't find the package to see all the drawings, so I really don't have any comments based on drawings, but now that after listening to everyone else, I'm having a few doubts. I feel like I need to look at the drawings to be able to make an informed comment.
Well, Elizabeth, do you have anything that you could share on the screen on your computer that I don't have it
I
on?
mean, we could pull it up from the website.
That would be
Okay.
great. All right,
me
why don't we
see.
do that?
Yeah.
Let me see. Justin, can you help me?
Yes, I can. I'll have it in a second.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I just want everyone to keep in mind that we have an application in front of us, and that if there's some simplifications, such as removing the shutters or, straightening and opening, I feel like that would be a much more productive thing to do than, after so many months to tell the Wilsies that, it's a garage in a not very populated area. So it's not on Nassau Street. So anyway, I'm not trying to discount the comments. I'm just trying to be practical about time and scheduling. Especially given that I know our next meeting is already getting full. So we've been quite busy.
One other thing, piggybacking on that, I mean, the garage is set fairly far back.
Yeah,
75, 100 yards from the road.
right. So I'm just saying, I feel like, you know, there are limits to where it may not be practical to have one's own personal choice. So, hey, Justin, you're looking for the elevations?
Yes, I have them. They're just loading right now. It's taking a minute.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I think this will be really helpful just for us to take a look.
Julie, I just have a question, if you will, and I want to
Sure.
apologize because your last liaison had design and architectural experience, which I absolutely do not. But my question is, just in being a layman here, I heard good comments, and I think what I heard was that quite possibly the applicants could come up with even a better solution and what might even look better and feel better to both the applicants and the people on this call. And my question would be, if this was approved as is, and the applicants wanted to work with a member of this board to make it even better by looking at drawings and making it perhaps more compatible with the historic value of the home, would that necessitate them coming back again and taking more time to get it approved again?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we don't approve this with modifications, then they would have to come back again. So we basically kind of have to work with this application, and we can recommend changes to it. But if we were to throw the whole application out and say, oh, just start over, then they have to come back. And they'd have to have a whole new set of drawings, and it'd be like starting over.
What about if there was a subcommittee that the HPC approved, so that way they could approve it independent? Would that work?
Okay, and then do an administrative approval?
Well, not administrative, but it would be approved with a subcommittee to finalize modifications. And then the HPC subcommittee would finalize design.
Yeah,
Which I've done in the past.
Right, so we would vote. Oh,
To approve and then defer the final design with the subcommittee for them to approve.
okay, but then they don't have to come back to
Correct.
HPC, right?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, that's what I mean. Oh, if you guys are comfortable with that, I guess I want to know from the Wilsies how much they prefer their own design. I mean, we are not design dictators, so we make recommendations, but I don't think it's in our purview to say, well, I like this better than this, and this would be okay, but I think this would be better. It's more about the district, and is this appropriate in the district, or is this going to be an aberration that is not appropriate in the district? So it's really about appropriateness rather than I like this design more than this design. And so I guess the point is, do we feel the original application is appropriate? And I mean, obviously Elric feels that it could be improved upon and that he feels it's not optimum, but the question is this appropriate? And so, I think it's helpful to look at the the design, it is a garage and it is set far back into the area. And I would just say for the type of building this is, you know, maybe this is appropriate, even if it's not what Elric would choose to build. So Frida, did you want to make any comments?
Can you scroll up, Justin? Or down? Okay, so that's it. Well, I mean, it looks like a simple garage. Do you have a photograph of the house?
You talking to us?
I think she's talking to Justin. He's got the computer file there. And then the other point is, well, maybe it would look better just without the shutters. Like maybe that's a way to simplify the design.
Yeah.
And I would be completely comfortable with that, just recommending it without the shutters.
Right.
Because I find it to be a fairly simple structure.
It is, yeah.
So I don't see anything egregious about it being in the district. I mean, I think, you know, Elric might have other ideas about what would be better, but as far as, is it appropriate for the district or not? I mean, to me, it seems appropriate.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's pretty simple, and I wanted to see a picture of the house just to kind of see how it worked with the house, but perhaps taking out the shutters would just simplify it and make it a garage.
Yeah.
Justin, do you see that one package that shows a view of the garage from Mercer Road, and then it shows the visual relationship of the existing house to historic house?
Do you know the name of that file?
I think that's in the application itself.
Yeah, I think all of that was scanned and it was part of the PDF. I'd have to look. Let me
There are multiple images in the application PDF file.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it on my thing.
I'm just wondering if you could go to Google Maps.
I was
if you
gonna
could
do
see
that.
the house.
Yeah.
Is this the house?
Yeah, that's the house across the street.
Are you sure?
Claudia, I'm in a meeting. Let's see, I'm trying to see if it's the bottom of your application. I'll go all the way to the,
Yeah,
Justin, if you find the application, the HPC applications, it's in the very bottom of it. It's part of that PDF. Yep. And so I think the next page shows a better picture of the house with the existing garage. So that's the side of the house. And then if you scroll to the next one, you can see the existing shed with the house there.
I remember this, okay.
So I'm just saying, given the place on the property, and if you would remove the shutters, it seems like it would become a pretty simple structure
I think so.
that I don't think it would detract from the house.
Easy to, this is such an eyesore that of course, anything is an improvement, but I think there's more potential there. Sorry.
And I do
May-
want to remind the commission that this is type 1, it's not type 2 district. So it's
Mhm.
really anything that is visible from any property within the historic district and the right of way.
Mhm. I guess, thank you so much for sharing the screen. I think that helps a lot.
It does.
I have a question. Is the garage, the park is open, is that face to the public?
No, that the road is to the left of the house. If you go up a little bit,
Mhm.
so that you can see where the driveway is located. In the drawing with the red circle around the existing garage, the opening is on the left-hand side. And Mercer Road, you can see, is quite far away from that.
Hmm.
So, anyway, I think, one of the things that the state talked about in our ordinance is, rather than approvals, giving certificates of appropriateness. And it's really, I think, a question of, is this appropriate for the district or not? And, let's see. I guess, Justin, if you want to stop the screen share, we can go back to, thank you. So then my question is there anything we can do with this application, since that's what's before us, and whether or not it's appropriate or not? And I would agree that I think it would look better without the shutters. But I still think it's a very simple structure. I'm not seeing anything too complicated or detracting from the house. But I guess I will ask Bruce and Marcia if, what are your timing considerations?
Honestly, this process has gone quite a long time. And while the structure itself is not sound and definitely needs to be replaced, whether it gets replaced within the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, I don't think that makes a great deal of difference to us.
Okay, well, maybe we could work with then like a subcommittee, if that would be okay with you. And then you could talk to Alric. I mean, Alric's done Alric has amazing like abilities. So I'm not discounting that. I'm just trying to, see what we can do with this application. But if you wanted to, Alric, if you would agree to be on a subcommittee and try to talk to the Wilsies before you go, and Elizabeth, if you want to handle that, then maybe we could work it out that way.
I apologize for the fact that this has come up after you've waited for a couple of months. That's why I brought it up with Elizabeth way back when, and whether or not I should just disavow my membership here just to be able to suggest some things. I certainly don't want to hinder it anymore, but it really could be I'd love to show you some alternatives. I'll do that. And then if I'm happy to abstain and leave it up to the rest of the I don't know how this is going to work out. Elizabeth has a better idea.
Madam Chair, perhaps you would like someone else to be on the subcommittee, or do you want them just to work with Alric?
Well, it really seems like Alric is the guy
Okay,
who
all right,
could really help. So
that's fine. And I apologize because when Elric had talked to me, the meeting was scheduled right away, but it had been deferred a few months because of noticing issues. So that's why it took a few months for it to get on. I'm sorry,
My
Marcia.
My
All
bad.
right, so
Any reason to want to be part of this?
So I guess what we could do is, Ed, let me ask you. So can we vote to approve with the condition that the applicants work with Elric?
Mhm.
And then we're sort of okay with whatever they end up with?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could approve the application that's been filed, subject to allowing a subcommittee, and it should be more than just one person, or maybe it comes back to a subcommittee that two other people chair, not Eldrick, and subject to the final details of the exterior appearance of the structure.
Okay. All right, so maybe it would go to Elric and then come back to me and Elizabeth?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So with those conditions, is there anyone who wants to make a motion to approve this application? Okay.
Sure, I'd make that motion, whatever Ed said.
Thanks. Thanks, Roger. All right. Is there a second?
I second.
Oh, thank you, Shirley. All right, let's have a vote.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Mr. Endersby,
Should I vote on this?
Yeah, you can vote.
No, I approve.
was that a yes?
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Shore,
Yeah, yes.
Ms. Satterfield,
Yes.
Mr. Shatskin,
Yes,
Ms.
Yes.
Capizoli.
Oh, yes. So, thank you. I'm sorry it was a little complicated. I'm so glad you're open to talking with Elric. And we look forward to, finalizing the changes at the end, but I think you guys can work out something really, really great.
Make one last comment.
Yeah.
I actually very much look forward to speaking with you, Mr. Endersby. And Marcia and I have spent a great deal of time and money trying to restore this house and appreciate its historical significance. I think we started from the assumption that this was a fairly utilitarian project and weren't really thinking about it in terms of a way it could actually enhance the appearance of the property and its the relationship between the two buildings. So, if there are some different design plans that you think would do that, we would be very open to learning about them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Elric, thank you for your comments.
I'm thinking too that maybe we could tour a couple of those buildings which are within a half mile of you and get a feel for what they look like and how some of those things could be applied. I certainly don't want to drag it out, and let's see if we can, it'll be cold, but let's see if we can get on this in the next couple of weeks.
That would be wonderful. Should we wait to hear from you?
I'll do it through Elizabeth, I think. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you later. Okay, so our next project is a concept review. It's 10 and 14 and a half Vandeevender Avenue. Are the out?
Yes, I have promoted Chris Tarr and Daniel Barsky.
Okay.
Julie, I'll sign off, okay?
Oh, thank you, Ed. Thanks so much.
Good night.
Appreciate it.
Right.
Happy New Year.
Hi, Julie.
Yes,
I also just want to share with the board that we have an important council meeting tonight that begins at 7. So I'm going to have a hard stop about 6:45, and I apologize if I am unable to be here for the entirety of the meeting, but I've
Oh.
already learned a lot from some good people.
no problem. That was a very complicated garage.
Yeah. But it all's well that ends well. And I think if I can just say this, I live in an historic district in a historic home. And I think anybody that's a homeowner and understands history, at the end of the day, may want some changes to their house, but they will slow down once they understand that it can enhance their historic value. And really, when you have an historic home, you want to maintain a certain level of quality with it. And I think that was what's going to work out to be a wonderful compromise that you guys.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you, Leighton. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And thank you, Elric, for your comments. It's really, it's helpful that everybody kind of worked it out there. All right. Hello, Chris. Hello, Daniel. So do you guys just want to go right into the concept review? Do you want to share your screen?
We do.
Okay.
I'm sharing here. 1 second.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen here?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Barsky. We had actually a couple meetings with the municipal professionals, including the planner, zoning officer, engineer, about properties that we own on 10 and 14 and a half Vandeevender and 16 and 18 Vandeevender. They share a property line, so the application is kind of a combination of both. And as we go through, I'll explain further. At least so far, the municipal professionals seem to be in favor of kind of what we're proposing. And on the property on 10 and 14 and a half, we're proposing to do a higher density 10-unit apartment building. 2 of those apartments will be designated affordable units. There's 1 3-bedroom affordable unit and 1 2-bedroom affordable unit, both to meet the COA obligations. In addition to that, and I'll show you as we go further into the presentation, there's this access alleyway that kind of connects Lincoln Court to Vandeevender to 2 lane. And part of what we're proposing is to actually widen that, actually make it into a proper walkway and dedicate it to the town. And we've heard from planners in the past, including Michael Laplace, that's kind of something the town was looking for and looking to do. So I'll just kind of go ahead and start by showing you this cool Google Earth image. So right here where my mouse is, I don't know if you see it.
Yeah.
You guys see my mouse on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Daniel, can you hear us?
Hello?
Daniel, can you hear us?
Let me see.
Daniel?
I guess they don't hear me.
Well, I hear you now, but can you hear us? Can everybody else hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Daniel, we can't hear you.
Hmm.
Well, that's a shame.
Maybe So maybe he's trying to,
He's working on it. I think he's trying to come back in again.
yeah.
Sometimes that
if-
helps to
Oh,
can
there
you
we
hear us,
are.
Daniel? Connecting to audio. Can you hear us, Daniel? Daniel, can you hear
Why
us?
don't I hear anything?
That happens sometimes.
I know it's fine. And then in the middle
Oh,
of this.
Oh, okay, okay, I hear you guys now. I
Okay,
just
now we
lost-
go. Here we go. Here we go.
Okay.
All right, sorry about
The-
that. So did you guys
so-
follow where I was at?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bring
we
your
saw
slides
the
back up.
mouse. And we
Yeah,
could
you see the mouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got
And we
to
could
share
hear-
it. You got to share your screen now, Daniel. You got to share the screen.
Okay, 1 second. Take it off, because the volume wasn't coming through.
And take the slides off the side. It'll make the picture bigger.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, so right here where I'm hovering over with my mouse is 1618 Vandeevender, which fronts on Vandeevender Avenue. And behind it here is 10 and 14 and a half Vandeevender Avenue, which actually doesn't front on any street. Oddly enough, yeah, even when I asked my contractors or other locals to meet me there, the first time even for me to find it was hard. You have to come down Nassau Street, down 2 Lane, and down Lincoln Court here. And it backs up right to the Triumph Building. And across the street from it on Lincoln is the Nelson Glass Building that's under construction. You can't see it from this map here, but it's right across the street off of Lincoln Court.
Daniel, does it have a Lincoln Court address?
No, it has a Vandeevender address, but you can't see it. It doesn't front on Vandeevender.
Is that
So
because of that little alleyway?
yeah,
that
there's there's 2 little wings that like 3-foot alleyways that come down to Vandeevender, and I guess that's how it got the address. So it's a little confusing. The address is Vandeevender Avenue, but we're calling it Lincoln Court Project because the only place you can access it and see it from is Lincoln Court. And as I show you pictures further along, even to see it on Lincoln Court, you only see the side of the building. 1618, however, over here does front on Vandeevender Avenue. And here's just a little bit closer shot for you guys to see. So once again, here's 10, 14 and a half. Here is the Triumph Building. Behind it, the red brick building, and then Nelson Glass. This Google Earth shot, I guess, was taken before they started construction. But this is where Nelson Glass is doing their new building right now. Here is 1618 Vandeevender, and they have a parking lot in the back here. So I'm just going to kind of take you through some pictures to kind of get you guys oriented. This is coming down Lincoln Court off of South 2 Lane. And over here to the right is the rear of the Triumph Building. And to the left, where you see these kind of bucket forks, is where Nelson Glass Building, where they're doing construction right now. And this gray building over here is 10 and 14 and a half. And 1618 is this yellow building that dead ends at the end of Lincoln Court. And this is coming up a few steps further. So once again, here's a Triumph Building. I guess they keep all their grease traps and trash out here. And as we come up a little further, here is 10, 14 and a half. And this is what you see from Lincoln Court. This side is 14 and a half. It's vacant at the moment. Actually, oddly enough, the insurance company called me before the holidays and told me they will not insure this building because it's in such bad shape. Obviously, no one lives there. It's been neglected for many, many years. And then as you turn the corner, this is 10 on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is 14 and a half. and there's some parking around the side and the rear. And then if we kind of take a step back to orient you where 1618 is, once again, it dead ends at the end of Lincoln Court. It's this yellow building here. At the moment, there's an office and 3 apartments there. It also has this parking lot in the back. And here's just a little bit, closer view of the parking lot in the back, in the rear. Right now, I think 8 or 9 cars parked there. And this is the alleyway that I was describing to you, and I'll show you further on the site plan that we've prepared. So, pedestrians, a lot of bicyclists don't use it because it's very narrow, it's overgrown, but some pedestrians do use it to get to Lincoln Court. It's not an easement, it's not owned by the town. One of our proposals, which I'll show you later on in the presentation, area and actually even widen it, put pavers down or some type of surface to actually make it a real walkway from Vandeevender to South 2 Lane. And here's the front of 1618 Vandeevender. Once again, on the 16 Vandeevender, there's an office on the first floor, 2 apartments above, and there's 1 apartment in 18 Vandeevender on the right-hand side. Parking is accessed off of Vandeevender down this alleyway to the parking in the back. So what we're proposing here is 1618 Vandeevender, which fronts on the street and work really just needs a facelift. There's some fascia and some trim that's rotting out, it needs to be repainted so that it doesn't continue to decay. But our intention here is to preserve 16 and 18 Vandeevender, which has that nice frontage on Vandeevender Avenue, and then use the parking lot in the back to service this 10-unit building on 10 and 14 and a half Vandeevender. In addition to that, in yellow here, we're proposing to increase this alleyway to 4 feet and then dedicate it to the town so that somebody on Vandeevender can come through this dedicated access way and then hit the sidewalk on Lincoln Court and continue on to town. We've also created an open space here to meet the requirement per zoning for some open space in this area. And we have some bicycle storage along 1618 to service 10 and 14 and a half. There's 7 spots total here, and there's another 6 actually inside the building under the stairwell. So, we addressed bike parking, open space, and we addressed 13 of the 15 parking stalls required total for this project. So right now, there's currently a driveway here along 18 Vandeevender and a driveway here along 16 Vandeevender. So our intention is to have 2 cars park along 16 and 2 cars park along 18 to meet the requirement for each one of these sides, and then have 9 parking spots total to service the 10 units that we're proposing on 10 and 14 and a half. In addition to that, we've also come up with a trash and recycling enclosure along the side here, which we'll have a fence for, and we'll hire a company to come make pickups for trash and recycling. Beyond that, the only other variances that are required are for FAR and coverage. And, with Triumph next door and Nelson Glass across the street, we believe that this building actually meets the scale of the other buildings around. Both of those buildings plus many other.
Uh-oh,
We lost Daniel. He was a little shaky there. He'll
yeah,
get back to us. I think he has some elevations to show you of the new building, which is the last thing he's got.
right. So would that new building that you're proposing that would replace the gray building, would that be visible at all?
We lost
from
you, Daniel.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just, Daniel. You're getting back on where you've dropped off. Yeah, you got to come back in. Okay, he didn't know he was off.
Oh,
So go ahead.
so would that new building that's proposed, would that be visible from Vandeevender?
Barely, but between the very large houses that are there, you can see it. Here he is.
Okay. Hi.
Daniel, can you share the screen with your elevations? There we go.
Daniel, you're muted.
Well, he's having that.
Where did we leave off?
There you go. Okay, how about the elevations, Daniel? We left off here.
Yeah.
Mhm. So here are the elevations we're proposing for this 3-story building. There's going to be 4 units on the first floor and 6 units on the second and third floor. The units on the second and third floor have balconies, which meet the open space requirement. And then the units on the first floor have that common open space that I outlined in the site plan. And, this kind of follows the design and style of Nelson Glass across the street. The height and scale of Triumph and Nelson Glass, it shows for brick on the first floor, and then a hardy or certaintied vertical siding coming up for the second and third floors. Our AC units are going to be on the roof between the units. And this north elevation fronts on Lincoln. This west elevation backs up to Triumph. The rear elevation is what would essentially be facing Vandeevender, and the east elevation is what faces Nassau Street. Again, all gridlocked in between this Lincoln Court and Vandeevender.
Goes reversed.
I think the south elevation faces,
Yeah, the
north has the doors, so the south would face Nassau.
Yeah, this north faces off of Lincoln.
Right. So the rear or south faces the backs up behind the building.
Right, to Nassau. To Nassau, right.
Mhm. Okay. Is that the full set then, Daniel?
For
what-
elevations?
No, is that everything you wanted to show the commission?
Yeah, basically, yes. I mean, I know, as we talked to Elizabeth and the professionals, Elizabeth thought that was a good idea to come and kind of conceptually show historical what we had in mind.
I was going to point out that this is in the historic district, but I hope you absorb the photographs of the back of the Triumph Brewery. It's not a very attractive street, and the cleaning up of the street was impressive. Also, I know you're aware of the overlay, the affordable overlays that were approved up and down the street, and the density and the parking are very consistent with what's going on up and down Nassau Street and 2-lane with the amount of parking that's provided for the units.
So I have a question maybe we could go back to our regular screen. But for Daniel, it would be interesting if you could Photoshop sort of the view you'd get from Vandeevender of what would be going on behind. I mean, when you first see the address and then you see the drawings, it's like, whoa, that doesn't look like that would fit in on Vandeevender at all. Like, you know, because it's very, this address is very confusing because I have one impression. When I look at Vandeevender, I think of a certain kind of building, and what you were showing was so different, but you're talking about the building that the Nelson Glass is doing, which is a real modern building.
Right.
And so that location is way closer to this building than anything on Vandeevender.
Yeah, and also beyond that, Nelson Glass Building actually fronts on a street that is, you know, traveled a lot of pedestrians go by, and probably more influences the character of the neighborhood, while this specific property, unless you've walked down Lincoln Court, which I'm not sure a lot of people have, you know, you don't even know this building exists. I see Leighton, maybe Leighton has, I know he walks a lot around town.
I do, and this is what I would love to know. You know, I've been here my whole life. I'm not exactly sure. I want you to walk me, you know, down, I guess where the Little Chefs is. I'm not exactly sure where you're talking about.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if everybody else is like that, but I'm not.
No, me too, I don't know.
If I'm going up Witherspoon Street and I take the left, where the Buffalo Wings are, right? Spring Street.
Spring Street.
And then I take a right on on Tulane.
South Tulane, you actually be going out. So you know where the Princeton Record Exchange is?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Across the street from that, there's this little alleyway
Yes,
that
yes.
services the back of Triumph, the back of Nelson Glass,
Okay.
the rear of Nelson Glass, and that's how you get to this property.
You share the
So-
screen again, you look at the site plan again,
You know, I can kind of maybe with
know what? For me, the site plan, I'm not good at that. That's why I'm trying, you know, if you visually take me a walk.
how about the
So-
other aerial? Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, that's not what I wanted. 1 second.
So if I'm looking down and I know the back of the Triumph and that little alleyway there, that little alleyway doesn't lead anywhere, right?
No, it doesn't. So this is Spring Street here. You see where my cursor is?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so if you make a left down here, down Tulane,
Right.
here is the Princeton Record Exchange.
Right.
And here is this road that dead ends. It's just a dead end. It stops right here.
Okay.
And here's this house at the end of that dead end,
Okay.
which I showed you that side view from. Across the street from this house is the Nelson Glass Building, which
Okay.
actually fronts on Spring Street,
Right.
but in the rear, this is the rear of that Nelson Glass Building. It dead ends right into this parking lot of 1618, the other property which I own, which actually fronts on Vandeevender.
Okay.
So the idea was actually 1618, oddly enough, is not in the historical district, and 10 and 14 and a half is. The idea was to preserve 1618 Vandeevender, which actually adds to the character of the street, which a lot of people pass and see, to utilize the parking in the rear and redevelop 10 and 14 and a half to get these two affordable units, to dedicate this walkable pedestrian alleyway, which, you know, at least municipal planners and everyone seems to really like this idea. So I don't know if that kind of helps you get an idea of where we're at.
Yeah.
So here's Nassau. If you come down South Tulane, there's like Mosi used to be right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Okay, I see where.
Right.
Exactly.
Then the Princeton Record Exchange. And a little further is the street that, you know, nobody drives down certainly. And some people walk through to cut through to Vandeevender.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So one suggestion was to Photoshop the view of that building through the large homes there, and we can do that for next
I mean,
time.
I can certainly do that, and I'm certain that the sight lines from any street is the impact of this building in scale is minimal. And, you know, again, especially compared to the Nelson Glass building, which in scale that fronts on a pretty heavily traveled on road and Triumph,
Right.
I think wouldn't be very impactful.
So by the way, Triumph is moving to the post office on Palmer Square, and some other use will be made of that building. And when talking to the staff, they have a very clear message that as and when somebody wants to reuse that building, they're going to clean up that loading dock. It's an eyesore, it's an embarrassment. And one of the reasons they were so enthusiastic about this plan was that it was going to clean up the backs of two buildings on that street, not just one.
And Elizabeth, I have a question for you. Now, Chris was saying that, so Vandeevender is not in the historic district.
It's in the recommended historic district, but the property that they are talking about today is in the historic district.
The 1014, the one in the back.
Yes.
The white one in the back is, the yellow one in the front is not.
Right. So the
Yeah.
big yellow building is actually not.
It's in the
protected.
recommended district. It's right across almost from the Beatty House.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, no, I
Right.
know.
And
it's-
then-
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the
and
offer
then-
is to keep it in place and fix it up and leave it looking nice. That's
Right.
the offer that Daniel's making.
Not to
Right.
make any alterations to the building beyond, you know, there's an old time Princetonian owned it who hasn't done work on it for 80 years since he's owned it. You know, it needs a fresh coat of paint. Some of the trim is rotting, needs to be replaced. I mean, if it goes unattended, it will, you know, deteriorate. And I basically want to give it a facelift, just fix up what's there, not make any alterations to the building. And, you know, when we were thinking of this conceptually, 1618, which in our opinion has a lot more value from a historical perspective, at least from aesthetics, to trade off with 10 and 14 and a half, which, you know, most people don't even know how to get there and that it even exists. And, you know, compared to the other buildings around, again, in scale and size, fits in. Plus the town gets 2 COA affordable units, plus a dedicated alleyway that's going to be widened for pedestrian access, biking. Again, at least the staff of Princeton seemed like they were enthusiastic about this application and kind of cleaning up Lincoln Court.
Well, I think it would be helpful also if we could draw an image of the units that Nelson is building, because it is a very modern building. And I don't think people realize how different the character is on Spring at that end than it is as you know, turn the corner. I mean, it's very different. So.
Just by the way, Nelson will use Lincoln Court for its, to get into its parking, which is underneath their building.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
So when we met when Daniel and Chris and myself and staff had met, you know, obviously HPC always likes to look at concept review. So that's why I encourage them to come and talk to them and get some feedback early on. So if there was something that they could incorporate as far as HPC comments, this is the best time. And, you know, we always appreciate when an applicant comes in and at least makes that effort to do that. I did tell them about probably 5 or 6 years ago, Robert and I had met with 2 architects from town who were interested in actually looking at that property and demolishing it and doing something else. That was a different time. There's been a lot of things that had changed. But I did hear, I can't remember who had told us that back there used to be housing for a lot of the people, from a long time ago who used to work in downtown Princeton. And I thought maybe Elric might have some information that he could share with the applicants in HPC, if he recalls anything from that neighborhood at all.
The building at the corner of Spring Street and South Tulane, I seem to remember that I thought that was built for people who, I thought there was something to do
Apartment
with
building?
Greek immigrants, and I'm not sure about that. But I just want to say, we've had several applications increasing the number of units on some of the buildings right around the corner on North Tulane and Wiggins. I think this is a far more successful application. It's respectful of the Vandeevender streetscape. It has character to it that the other applications we've recently had simply don't have, in my opinion. I think it's going to sort of nestle right in there, and I think you've done a nice job.
We don't have to reclad it, Elric. Just comment.
I'm just letting you off on this one. No, I think this really looked good, and I think the lines are good, and I think that it is increasing the number of units in the area. I do have questions about, it seems like the parking is a bit contrived on those driveways. People are going to be backing out and whatever. If there's some way of trading off on that,
The municipal engineer has worked that over. I think we've got just the 9 spaces there.
okay. But I mean, the building itself, I think works well, and it, I don't know how Triumph, that building is, that building was Princeton's original movie theater and a
Bowling alley.
when I was a
Bowling
kid.
alley.
Bowling alley. Leighton remembers a bowling alley.
I used to go bowling there.
Which is the bar now for the Triumph. They made the bar out of the bowling alley.
But anyway, I commend you. I think you've done a nice job.
Good job, Daniel.
Yeah, so with the parking, we meet the requirements for the drive aisle to turn around. We were hoping to actually accommodate more spaces, but we lose a couple because we need to have a handicap space. But like Chris mentioned, the overlay zone actually for this building would only technically require 5 parking spaces, and we've almost doubled the amount of spaces that are required in the overlay zone, which we think would apply here. So, we really try to be mindful that 1618 really brings a lot of character to Vandeevender, to preserve that, and then 10 and 14 and a half to do something where, we can have some higher density. Even the manager of Triumph already reached out to me because he rents parking spaces for me there, and he's already interested in renting a unit there. So I think that it would service like local people who work in town, for example, like the manager of Triumph. So.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you bringing this in so we can kind of understand it. Like I said, I think the most confusing thing is the addressing, because I just shook my head. Like, what do you mean, Vandeevender?
We're gonna do a Gallup. We're gonna do a Gallup poll to see if people like Lincoln Court better than Vandeevender Avenue.
Yeah, it feels like it needs a different address or something.
Well, between ourselves, we call it Lincoln Court because we don't associate it with Vandeevender. And I think that's a good idea. Sight lines from the street on Vandeevender. I will have my architect prepare that when I bring a formal application, because I'm certain that it's really, really minimal impact as far as sight lines, considering it's so tucked behind. And actually, the 2 buildings in front of it, 1618 and the one next door, they're pretty big buildings. They're tall buildings. So I will definitely put something together in that regard.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
quick
late.
ques- Quick, thank you. Quick question, Dan. What are the total units in both sites and how many affordable are in both sites?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, so the 1618 is right now there's 3 apartments, but for parking reasons, it's going to go to 2 apartments. And then on 10 and 14 and a half Vandeevender, there's 10 units and 2 of them are going to be affordable COA units. So there's going to be a 3-bedroom COA affordable unit and a 2-bedroom COA affordable unit.
Okay, but none, okay, but none obviously in the first, you're only gonna have 2 units.
Yeah, in 1618, it's just 1 unit on each side, but once we're finished with this application.
In other words, the office would go away and you'd have just one side of the house, it's like a duplex.
Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, again, I wouldn't be opposed to keeping it as, the 3 apartments in the office it is now, but I think for parking reasons, the zoning officer and the planner are going to say the demand for parking is a lot greater to have that. So to convert it into just a 2-family, so this way the rear of 1618 can service the 10 units on 10 and 14 and a half.
Mhm.
Will the affordable units have the same appliances and will it be the same as the other units?
So I think this is kind of my first go around with the COA obligations, but there's like very, very specific rules on what's required. So, I haven't had a chance to go in depth about what that is, but certainly we're going to meet all the COA obligations.
Right.
So there's, there's certain requirements on room sizes, bathroom sizes. So whatever those are, we're obviously meet with, and beyond that, I don't have a whole lot more information about it, just because I don't.
And Layton would know more than others, but I think that they're transferring the jurisdiction from COA over to a municipal ordinance. That
Yes.
has been, they've been working on quite recently.
I think you're right, Chris, and I think Shirley's probably point is that, in inclusionary housing now, when you have 2 affordables and in a 10-unit building, you want to make sure that the affordables mimic the market rate. The appliances really should be the same.
Mhm.
It should be inclusionary is just that, and that,
Right.
this is a personal opinion, but I think that's the way you take social equity forward during these times, is to make sure that, you
have the same.
Right.
you treat everyone the
Right.
same
I-
in
I-
housing.
I think Daniel's point was, and my understanding is that the municipal ordinance calls for very careful treatment of the affordable units, maybe even
Absolutely does.
upgraded from what you'd be required to have for a regular apartment.
Right.
Yeah, actually, some of the requirements are, there's actually more requirements for some of the affordable units than even market rate units. Certainly, whatever those requirements are, obviously, it's our obligation to meet. And the reason I couldn't answer it specifically is I don't know enough about it yet at this point to be able to answer exactly. But I'm certain, whatever the municipality comes up with in their guidelines, we're going to follow.
Oh, absolutely. And let me first say thanks, because at least you're meeting the 20% rule, and that's a good thing. So appreciate that too.
All right, well, thank you so much for bringing this in. Very, very interesting location. And we look,
Chair,
what's that?
I'm sorry, there's someone in the public who has their hand raised.
Oh, okay, we better bring them in.
Okay, Ashley Formento, I'm going to promote you.
Hello, Ashley.
Unmute, start video there.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Daniel and Chris and committee. I think it's very exciting. I'm a neighbor at number 20. So 2022, I'm the next twin down from 1618. And I think it's very exciting. It'd be great to see, both affordable and something cleaned up back there. But can you talk more about the treatment of 1618 that fronts Vandeevender, my next door neighbors?
Yeah, so our intention is to preserve what's there now, meaning, not making any alterations to the building beyond, as I'm sure you know, Bill Bunting owned it for many years. I mean,
Yeah.
he hasn't done anything to the building, and
Oh,
yeah, right. So as a professionals in this business, as I walk around, I see a lot of items on the outside that need to be repaired that wouldn't actually involve technically historical approval. And correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, if a piece of fascia, like a corner, is rotted out, to replace that with the same corner, it's not necessary to come back to historical, right?
Right, if it's replacement in kind, that's
Right.
something that you
So,
can do.
so that's the idea on 1618, is to preserve it, give it a fresh paint job so that what's there is going to last and not continue to deteriorate. And then also to convert it to just a two-family, as opposed to right now, which is 3 apartments and I guess it's a therapist's office there.
And Ashley, from your point of view, if that driveway that goes down the side by your property would be closed off.
so they would have the same parking that I have. I bet that's just a personal issue, but no, I think the plan sounds terrific. I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for putting in your comments. We appreciate it. All right, anyone else from the public here, Elizabeth?
No, but there was a question that was presented. It says, is it true that 1014 Vandeevender rear house near Lincoln Court was moved from Nassau Street? What is the age of the building?
You would have that in your records, Elizabeth, because it's in the historic district, but it's old. And and very likely came down from Nassau Street. We've heard that as well,
I don't
but
think so.
no.
I just believe that. There are 5 houses that I can think of on Vandeevender, which were moved down from Beatty House and the house beside it, Jim Firestone's house, and the gray house behind the Garden Theater. All of those were moved down from where the University Library is located now, and also where the Methodist Church is located now.
Right. They would have come down straight from behind like PJ's or somewhere up there if it had been up on Nassau Street, but we just don't know.
We don't know, and I did some research. I also went to the library trying to find out. There's not a whole lot of information about it. The only thing I know is it's uninsurable at the moment, which is a problem.
The
What's that?
Foundation, stone, rubble.
Stone or block work or what?
It's block work, and it's all been patched and repatched, and concrete block, yeah.
Daniel, I gave you some information, right, on the properties? when we
Send me,
did that?
yeah, it was like a paragraph that it was moved from Nassau at one point. I think it was maybe late 1800s. I mean, let me see here. So no, this is not it. Just give me 1 second and I'll pull it up.
Yeah, here it is. It's on the Vandeevender Avenue streetscape inventory. It says, though no houses stood here before the 1870s, at least 3 earlier houses, numbers 10, 21, and 25 have been moved here from original locations on Nassau Street. Yeah, that's the only blurb they have about it.
Right. So there wasn't a whole lot of info, and I actually went even a step further and trying to kind of dig in my own to be prepared for your guys' comments. And I really couldn't find anything. I do know though that they've been neglected for a long time. I mean, Triumph was using the one side to like store their flasks in for, like what they put their beer in for a lot of years. So.
Briefly, there's a story which is pretty neat. The reason why Vandeevender has that name was that, and not the name Rowland, there was a Hinkson's was originally, it's gone through several different names, but when it was up on Nassau Street, Roland had it, and it was an Upper Pine when I was growing up, when Shirley was growing up. This fellow by the name of James Vandeevender came in one day, and Roland was really excited about this. He said, I found out this property down the street is coming up for sale, and I can get it for just about nothing. And this is all behind Cambridge House. And Vandeevender kind of nodded his head and said, well, I wouldn't let the grass grow under my feet if I were you. So about a week or so later, Rowan went in to purchase the property. I said, no, it's been
Mr. Vandeevender. It's happened to Daniel a couple times.
Yeah.
That's the back there where Hingson's is now, and Vandeevender was a nurseryman and had orchards and whatever back there. Anyway, enough from me.
Now, I know that Elizabeth and I talked about the name of the street. People who didn't grow up in Princeton call it Vandeevender, and it sounds really weird. But
Vandeevender, Vandeevender, right,
that's
Julie?
no dig on you, but we grew up calling it Vandeevender. So yeah.
Well, we'll train him.
That's okay. I was born in Princeton in the old hospital. I still don't know how to say the name.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right, but I'm gonna make it a note right now.
Vandeevender. It sounds, yeah.
That's from Vandeevender to Palmer Square and beyond. That's uptown, and the other area was downtown. They used to have a football game on Thanksgiving between the two ends of town, way back when.
Wow.
We have to come to more concepts to hear Elric's history. So
Yeah, I was going to tell you that I used to bowl at the bowling alley, but that's
Right.
when they didn't have anything automated. So after you threw the ball down, you had to go down the alley and put the pins
set the pins back up. Yeah,
Pins back up.
that was
that's fun.
behind Mr. Farr's hardware store. That burned down. I remember it well.
Well, thank you guys for coming in. It's a very interesting place. And, we learn a little bit each time. So thank you very much.
Your
So
comments.
we'll see you later.
Thank you.
So
Take
we
care.
got one more thing. We have public comment, and one of the items involves the Princeton Theological Seminary. And we had talked about replacing the sidewalk with slate, and there was a public comment that we missed. And so we would like to hear that.
Right, so Tom Chapman had reached out after the meeting, and he didn't know if actually public comment was available during concept. His hand was raised, but unfortunately, I didn't see it, so I apologize to him. And Ed had recommended for us to put it under public comment for him to be able to talk about whatever type of comments he was not able to share last time. And Dennis is here from the Princeton Theological Seminary also to be able to address any comments that Tom might have or questions that the commission might have further questions on.
All right. Thank you both for coming back. We appreciate it. So I guess, Tom, maybe we should start with you and hear your comment.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks very much for providing this opportunity. I don't know what happened last time, probably my fault, but anyway, I missed my chance and you restored it, and I appreciate that very much. My name is Tom Chapman. I live at 14 Alexander Street, as some of you know, and that's about almost at the corner of Mercer Street. We're also right across the street from the seminary, many friends across the street and beyond. We're also about a block and a half at most from the intersection of Mercer and Library. So it's well trodden by myself and others on our board and committee. So I'm here to kind of, maybe the way to talk about it is to pick up on where we left off on was it the 18th of December? I think that was it.
20th, I think.
20th. Sorry, thank you. And there were some comments made about historic preservation by David Shore and by Elric Endersby. And what we're going to do tonight is just kind of pick up on that theme and expand on it a bit, having had a couple of nice weeks here to both think about it, do some investigation, make a number of visits down the street to take our sense of what's proposed. So with that, I'd like to share a PowerPoint presentation, short.
Sure.
So tell me what to do and I'll try and activate it.
I think you have permission to share.
Share screen, good. Here we go.
Good job.
Ooh. How's that?
Great.
Everybody can see it?
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So just for starters, just to give you a little bit of context, we Mercer Hill Historic District and the seminary literally and figuratively share common ground. We are all part of one district in Princeton. And just for your information, I don't know whether this is something you all know, perhaps so, but in the district, there are roughly 135 buildings, split almost evenly between private, PTS, PU. The rest of the buildings are Trinity Church, Nassau Club, and so forth, other institutions. The focus in the district is largely residential. About 57% of the buildings in the district are residential, both single and multi-dwelling. Just a quick recap on what the seminary would like to do is to replace 298 feet of bluestone with concrete sidewalks on those two streets, mostly Mercer and also, mostly Library, and then on Mercer. And what's being proposed is motivated by a concern about pedestrians' safety. And clearly we are all behind safety and protecting pedestrians. The rationale that they have stated, and I won't go into great detail here, had to do with the number of slates that were damaged, broken, roughly a third. Slates having gap ranges, and 80% of the slates are raised to some degree, 1/2 inch to 3 inches, which in turn suggests that there are going to be pedestrian safety issues. So the proposal that's been presented is to remove and dispose of all the bluestones and replace them with concrete, tinted gray, which is our concern. Protecting and preserving these historic resources, no surprise, is a basic principle, as all of you well know, of historic preservation. And as secondary as you might think sidewalks and landscapes are, they're very much a part of the preservation consideration. These two houses are particularly appealing. 81 Mercer, sure you know about it, built in the 1850s. Interestingly enough, the first Princeton residence of Albert Einstein, and it was converted to a high-style Queen Anne type house in the late 1800s. Adams House is right next door on Library. It was built in 1314, designed by a well-known architect. And it is just a wonderful building with leaded windows, stone facade, courtyard walk, and so forth. So these are two very much prized buildings in the district. The loss of the bluestone sidewalks would, in our judgment, diminish the landscapes and the streetscapes by removing something that is very much a fabric that enhances historic authenticity, complements the buildings, clearly establishes the area's sense of place for visitors. You know in a flash when you walk down those sidewalks that you're in an historic district, a very special place. And it's this use of bluestone is very extensively used in this neighborhood, in all of Mercer Hill District, and in many of the Princeton historic districts. So it's really part of the fabric of Princeton. Question for us, a key question, is whether the conditions as described by our friends at the seminary justify the replacement, all of them being replaced with concrete. So our questions have to do with, how many bluestones really present severe safety hazards? How many of the stones are unrepairable? What percentage are at a hazardous level? Have bluestone alternatives to concrete been considered? Has the municipality been approached to request repositioning of the raised stones or to assume responsibility of full maintenance, since this is a public right-of-way? Will the New Jersey Historic Preservation Office be reviewing this proposal and have the longer-term financials of full concrete replacement versus selective repair and replacement prove out on a long-term basis? Here's some numbers that, with great respect to the seminary, I'd like you to focus on this first couple of rows here, the ones in red at the top, which starts with, on the left, the number of stones involved, 100%. PTS's estimate of how many are damaged or broken, 43, or roughly a third. In many trips over there, we come up with a slightly different impression that, and we're speaking here about really hazardous conditions. We come in at about half of that. In terms of, yes.
I'm sorry. Your conversation, is that related to a photograph on your slide?
You'll see a photograph of, let me go back.
Because I think that we've only seen the first page.
Yeah, we're only seeing page 1.
Really? I've been advancing this right along. I apologize. Where did you leave off?
Just page
The
1.
very first one.
This one?
Yes.
Why isn't it advancing for you?
I don't know.
For me.
Can you click it on the side? Because we can see the pages on the left.
We just see, I just see title, the title. page.
Yeah.
What do you see? I apologize.
So we see the main page, and we see the smaller thumbprints on the left of the slide. So we know there's 10 slides, but we can't see.
That's odd. Wait, maybe, yeah, I started from the beginning. Let me try it.
Oh,
this.
no, yeah, now we're
That's
seeing
number 4.
Oh, we saw 4 for a second.
I'm on 1.
Yeah, now we're on 1.
Yeah, click
now
2.
we see
Okay,
2.
now we see 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's weird. Anyway, apologies. you've heard the story, so I'm going to try and zoom through here. Basically, I'm saying that we have great respect for the seminary. We have worked extensively with them. We share common ground. We are part of a district that's composed of them, other private residences, the seminary, the university, and others, and it's largely residential. Here's what they want to do. You know this story: 295 feet, roughly a football field worth of bluestone being replaced with concrete sidewalks. And they have that. We'll come back to the stats here on what their estimate of damaged and raised stones are, which obviously would raise concern about pedestrian safety. 2 houses involved here, and historic preservation is being challenged, not in a direct way relative to the buildings, but escape if the bluestones are removed. These are 2 very prized buildings. Here are shots of the one on the far left is looking up Library Place. The one in the center is looking down Mercer Street. And the one on the far right is beyond some bluestones that are beyond the building on the corner. And they are just part of the fabric, part of the whole experience of this historic district. So here were our questions. Did you hear all these? Do you want me to repeat any of them?
Oh, no, we heard those.
Okay. So just about to describe some data and some differences of, I'll call it observation, because that's really what it is on our part. And I'm not sure, Dennis, what how you guys came up with your numbers, and we respect them for sure, but ours look a little bit different, certainly with regard to what are truly hazardous and what aren't, what are fixable, what are not. So there are 130 stones involved. The seminary's estimate of damage to broken is 43 stones, roughly a third. Our estimate is 22, which is roughly half of that. Raised stones, 104 is the seminary's estimate. We're seeing much fewer raised to the degree that wouldn't have to kind of get down on your hands and knees and measure it. So I'll move on and hit one more concern, and that is that as I have learned about it, and you all may know this, concrete poses notable environmental impact issues as well as cost disadvantages. Cement apparently is one of the main producers of carbon dioxide, which is obviously a greenhouse gas. Concrete sidewalks can be a threat, interestingly enough, to health and well-being of pedestrians. They can become these kind of heat islands. Particularly when it gets really hot, and obvious material could well contribute to surface runoff, water pollution, and flooding. So removal, trucking the material away and disposing of it is also compounding concerns about negative environmental impact and cost. So in summary, we suggest that retaining all the historic qualities of this quite wonderful corner of our district be something that we maybe hit the pause button on in terms of replacing it all with concrete, and consider some alternatives. One alternative in particular to replace the bluestones. And that is to selectively, the solution we're suggesting we give consideration to is selectively replacing the unrepairable stones with new bluestone, preferably reclaimed, and then level those stones which provide or present a serious pedestrian hazard. This is something that there's a precedent for. University joined PTS and all the private residents in reusing and repairing existing bluestones and replacing them with other new stones on Alexander Street when it was rebuilt. I think the year was 2007. Don't hold me to it, but certainly we were here. And a similar situation and solution was also repeated on the rebuild of Mercer Street in 2009. So it's not without precedent that this is undertaken. And now is the time. If these are removed, that's it. They're gone forever. Concrete, I think, our point of view, and I think many share this, is that it just does not equal historic authenticity, cultural landscape, aesthetic appeal of bluestone, whether it's gray or whatever. And the concrete does create some concern about climate issues and cost challenges, which longer term, we all want to get things done now, understand that, but over the long haul, the story could change in terms of what the real costs are. So that is all we have to say, and appreciate very much your putting up with me with rolling on here without the slides moving with me. But I hope you gave it some thought as I went along and understood what I was saying.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Well, I think you have to hit the unshare screen button. Is that at the top? Do you know, Elizabeth? Oh, there we go. That's good. Yeah, all right.
All right, we're back.
I want to thank you because you have addressed concerns that I had. I asked at the last meeting how much needed to be replaced, and because when we went out to the municipal dump on River Road last summer, they have quite a stockpile of slate that has been accumulating there for some period of time. Same thing with curbstones. But when they told me 300 feet, I knew that in the interest of safety and whatever, I was persuaded that this alternative didn't exist.
In terms of quantity, Ulrich, or
in terms of quantity, and also I hadn't really, the way I asked the question was how many feet. I should have asked how much of this, how extensive is this damage and how many stones are affected, which is the question you've asked and answered. And I think we ought to, David was the one who spoke for what I probably should have said, which is that as preservationists, we ought to be thinking in terms of some way in which this aspect of the landscape could be preserved. And I appreciate what you've said about this, and I hope this gives all of us, including the seminary, the opportunity to revisit it and at least pursue whether or not this is a viable alternative. Thank you.
If I could speak, I
Yes.
know that I just started about 7 months at the seminary, and Herman Martinez, who I oversee, and I'm sure that everybody's aware of him. We have requested from the town for a few years for slate to be able to repair those sidewalks, and the answer has always been that there isn't any. I know in a couple of occasions where I've walked with Elizabeth, the site in question, she had also mentioned that the town has this stockpile, and we've tried, and again, we've never been given that opportunity to receive those pieces of slate. The ones on Mercer Street are nominally larger, considerably larger actually than any other sidewalk around that I've seen in town. I would say that those are probably 5 feet wide, which are extremely unusual pieces. And the ones on Library Place are very nominal. You're talking 18 inches, anywhere from 18 inches wide to possibly 2 feet wide in nature. Standards in regards to what we consider a tripping hazard, I could tell you that we've just redone our plazas at Brown Hall and the chapel, and we consider it to be anything a tripping hazard over 1/8 of an inch. Again, women having heels might potentially cause that as a tripping hazard. It is a municipal sidewalk. The seminary does maintain it for weather. Snow removal becomes an issue, obviously, when you're talking anything that is even over 1/4 of an inch, because now you're using equipment, correct, that is going through that. And we have over 6 miles of sidewalks that we need to clear. We're a very small crew of staff. But it is a safety concern overall, in my eyes. Coming into the seminary, I'm trying to address a lot of the issues in regards to what could be a hazard for our students, our residents and guests. And if there's an alternative to do that, by all means, we're open to that. But we do want to try to address this sooner rather than later. I know that, again, for the last few years, Herman has been requesting slate, and the answer has been that they don't have what we need to be able to do this. And it becomes a little bit harder, especially in the areas that you're talking about by tree roots, because again, no matter how the slate is, it'll always be somewhat of a tripping hazard in some of those areas. And maybe it is kind of combining a combination of concrete in those areas that are more flexible versus the areas that are not repairable. But at the end of the day, you still have to kind of remove all of it, put a nice base, and either put back slate. And if there is slate at the town, by all means, we will take it and do as best as we can. But a lot of the pieces, again, I'm not sure what is acceptable and not acceptable. I know that me coming into the seminary, we prefer a 2-inch bluestone as opposed to 1/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, where it has been in a lot of places. And it's also, again, it's a mill kind of bluestone, so it's a finish, it's nice and smooth, and it is not imperfected in any of the edges or corners.
I was impressed last summer, David, Elizabeth, and Julia, I think you were there too when we went out to that site, where they have the construction trailer that serves as their office. The approach on both sides, those very large stones. I mean, I think they're like 4 by 5s. Now, how many of them there are, I don't know. But if you're talking the percentages that you were showing on your chart, it seems to me like there was an adequate amount in that location. At least it's worth taking a second look at.
Yeah, is Elizabeth, who's the person? Would it be Deanna in charge, or this is Public Works, or who? You're on mute.
Sorry, Andrew is the head of Public Works now, and then the person we had met out there was Dominique, if you recall, but he works, under Andrew in that department. So I could ask Andrew.
Yeah, if you could reach out to Andrew and maybe even have a site visit where, Andrew can become aware of the situation.
Mhm.
Sometimes it really helps to have another, municipal employee bring it
Right.
up.
Dennis, who did Herman talk with? Do you know? When he's asked in the past about the,
I would have to find that information out. I know that I've asked a couple of times, and even with you walking around, he's mentioned that he's tried with the town to be able to receive the bluestone to be able to repair it, and the answer has been they don't have it.
There are salvage yards too, but I think the fact that we might be able to reuse material which was previously used elsewhere in town is particularly attractive to me.
well, the other thing that they should also look at is flipping it over. Seeing what the other side is like.
Right.
Because that's been on the ground and maybe it's not been destroyed, it's maybe in better condition. That might be something to look into.
Well, I was wondering if, Tom, if you could email your presentation to Elizabeth, so Elizabeth can take that presentation over to Andrew, and then Andrew can see it, so that they understand what we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, be happy to. Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be great.
Good, terrific.
And maybe just, HPC does a lot of work for the community, and we're hearing from one of our constituent groups they'd really like to try and work on this with the seminary. This is kind of a breakthrough preservation opportunity, and maybe just, I know Herman also, he's a great guy, but maybe he just didn't reach the right person, or maybe our asking gets the question a little further down the track. But I think it's really worth doing this.
Right,
And
right.
I have been thinking since the last meeting, how can I help this situation? And I didn't come up with any ideas, but it's been in the back of my head the whole time.
We did a little investigation and found that there are apparently 4, I don't know what to call them, stone works in New Jersey that claim that they have repurposable bluestone.
So what we're learning is, let's examine it a little bit more and see what we can offer up from the town point of view, and to see what we can work with the seminary. I think it would just be a win if we could, and if we can't, we can't, but at least looking at it a little bit more would be very satisfying.
Great.
And that we gave it the effort.
Well, I agree. And I think Dennis can go back to the seminary administration and talk about the sustainability component, which I know they care about deeply.
Yep.
So
sure they do.
Yeah.
We weren't going to be disposing. I think that we were going to try to give that back actually to the town so they could reuse it in other areas. Yeah. No, definitely.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming back. We really appreciate it. Sorry we didn't have this discussion before, but at least we did it.
Yeah, that's great.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Good
you.
deal.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And Dennis, if you could find out from Herman who he spoke with, so I can just kind of follow and find out what's going on.
Sure. That'll be
Thank
great.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I think we're losing our members quickly, one by one. I see people dropping off. Is there anything else? I think that's all on our agenda. I know our February meeting is already getting pretty busy. We're meeting, what?
On the 7th.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah. So we'll see you in like a month.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So is there anything else, or do you want to just adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, somebody?
Yeah.
We hit everything.
Okay, great.
David
David,
first?
I saw David and I saw Roger. I saw Albert. Everybody. All right. Thank you everyone so much.
Happy
Great
New
meeting.
Year.
Happy New Year. We'll see you February 7th. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I already put the time in my book.